Chapter 401. No strange weapons are allowed for this military drill. Wang Teng kept the black meteorite. He wanted to continue admiring it, but he couldn't. He was afraid that he would start using the furnace if he kept staring at it. Mind you, he was an advanced stage alchemist. It was natural for his hands to get itchy when he saw this legendary furnace. However, this wasn't the right time and place. Furthermore, he didn't have any spiritual herbs with him. He could only wait for the next time. Here came the question. What was the function of the black meteorite furnace? From its reaction just now, it was able to condense flames together and increase the speed of dan making. As previously mentioned, the black meteorite furnace was made using a meteorite from outer space. The meteorite had landed in a volcano and was submerged among the lava for thousands of years. Special changes had occurred to the meteorite. The most widely known function was its ability to gather flames. As for the others, only those who had used it before would know. Wang Teng contemplated for a moment. Then, he took a deep breath and cleared the unnecessary thoughts in his mind. He started cultivating. The next day, at 7 a.m., everyone gathered in front of the dormitory building. Lieutenant Colonel Niu appeared once again. Nai Jianqiang and the other instructors were present too. Immediately after they gathered, Niu Li brought them to the military cafeteria for breakfast. The military cafeteria was huge. The tables and chairs were arranged neatly, and the food was already served on the table. All the dishes were placed in the same way and in identical positions. Wang Teng was in awe when he stared at the cafeteria. He felt that even a person with the obsessive-compulsive disorder would be cured if he was thrown into the military for 2 months. When they arrived, other groups of soldiers were also streaming into the cafeteria for breakfast. Huh! Wang Teng made a soft exclamation. He looked at the 2 teams who were walking in. Han Zhu heard him and turned to look in the same direction. He smiled and explained, "They are Xingshan Military Academy and Yunkong Military Academy students." "There are other universities here too?" Wang Teng asked in surprise. "What's strange about that?" The students from these 2 universities would also enter the Black Sparrow Troop after they graduate. "You should read up on these matters," Wn Baiqiu said. "Why should I? My brain is already filled," Wang Teng replied nonchalantly. "Respect." Wn Baiqiu was speechless. Did they participate in the martial arts competition? "I have no impression of them at all," Wang Teng asked curiously. Han Zhu and Wn Baiqiu didn't know what to say. "Your attention was only on Capital Military Academy and the First University, right?" Wn Baiqiu asked angrily. "Ha ha ha, was it?" Wang Teng laughed awkwardly. The students from Xingshan Military Academy and Yunkong Military Academy saw Wang Teng and his friends. Their expressions changed slightly, especially when they saw Wang Teng. This was the gaze of a bottom feeder looking at a star student. Of course, they weren't bottom feeders. None of the 10 military academies in the country were lousy. But compared to Wang Teng and Han Zhu, they felt useless. Soon, everyone arrived, and breakfast started. A second later, only the sound of munching could be heard in the cafeteria. After breakfast, Niu Li brought them to the martial arts arena. The martial arts arena was far from the residential area and the cafeteria. Even with their speed, the martial warriors had to jog for close to 10 minutes before they arrived. Their martial arts arena looked similar to Huanghai Military Academy Stadium. It was huge, and there were many different zones. Niu Li led everyone through the door. They walked along the outskirts for some time before they finally arrived at an area with an arena and a spectator stand. "Perform well. Don't hold back. Your performance during this drill will affect the future arrangements the military has for you. All the best." After a few reminders, Niu Li, Nai Jianqiang, and the instructors from the other universities went to the spectator stand to watch the drill. Suddenly, Nai Jianqiang stopped in his tracks. "Oh right, no strange weapons are allowed for this military drill." Lieutenant Colonel Niu was puzzled by this random remark. He looked at Nai Jianqiang in confusion. Han Zhu and his friends understood at once. They turned to look at Wang Teng strangely. Wang Teng was bewildered. "Why are you all looking at me? How is it related to me?" Don't you know that you have the strangest weapon of all? Wan Baiqiu replied. The other students nodded. Wang Teng finally realized what they were referring to. The brick. These people were looking down on his brick. Why? That is a weapon too. I'm not breaking the rules, Wang Teng refuted unhappily. Niu Li felt even more confused. What weapon were they talking about? Why were they speaking in riddles? Couldn't they be clearer? Why? What do you think? Nai Zhenxiang glanced at him helplessly before he snorted. You might not find it embarrassing, but I do. Don't create any trouble for me. Fight properly and let everyone witness your real skill. Wang Teng wasn't convinced. There were many talented martial warriors in the military. If he couldn't use his brick, how was he supposed to collect more spirit and enlightenment attributes from them? Nai Zhenxiang had a headache when he saw Wang Teng's reaction. He couldn't understand why he was so stubborn. What was wrong with the other weapons? Were they hard to use? This fellow was a talent, but he had a few screws loose. Were smarter people more abnormal too? One Han Zhu and the other students seemed normal. It looked like they weren't smart enough. Yes, this must be why. He knew that he still had to rely on Wang Ting to gain honor for their university, so he softened his tone and said, I won't stop you if you use your brick outside, for instance, on the battlefield. You can do whatever you want with it. However, you can't use it today. The martial warriors you're fighting with are our own people. They might be your seniors. A brick. Niu Li caught this word sharply, and his mind went blank. What the hell? As a martial warrior and a student of Huang Hai, he was using a brick. Did he hear wrong? But when he saw everyone's nonchalant expression, he had to accept this fact. He looked at Wang Ting with a strange gaze. This fellow. Wang Ting hesitated and nodded. All right, I won't use it this time. However, you can't stop me in the future. At first, he wasn't willing to relent. However, Nai Zhenxiang had managed to convince him. They were on the same side, so he should give them some face. There were many enemies on the battlefield, enough for him to harvest lots of attributes. He wouldn't be losing too much. Nai Zhenxiang heaved a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Wang Ting would remain stubborn, but fortunately, he took a step back for him. He had nothing else to say, so he went up to the spectators' stand with Niu Li and the others. There were already many military martial warriors seated on the spectators' stand. They were looking at the students below and discussing in hushed voices. There were many other soldiers sitting around too. All of them were waiting in anticipation for the drill to start. After all, these weren't ordinary recruits. They were all talented martial warriors from military academies. The military drill would definitely be extraordinary and spectacular. Some of them might become outstanding generals in the future. They would be the influential men of their era, taking control of the overall situation. Hence, many soldiers who didn't have missions chose to come and take a look. The students from Xingshan Military Academy and Yunkong Military Academy were present as well. They were standing not far away in two groups. No one spoke, but they kept glancing at the students from Huanghai Military Academy occasionally. Wang Teng ignored them. He was looking at the group of soldiers on the opposite side of the arena. There were only around 50 of them, much less than the number of students from the military academies. Yet, their aura surpassed those of the students combined. They appeared relaxed as they sized up the recruits, looking at them mockingly. A 30-year-old man with a mighty temperament was seated in the middle of the spectators' stand. He was wearing a military uniform with one crimson star on his shoulder. That represented his identity. He was a general. His name was Song Wanjiang, one of the deputy commanders of Black Sparrow Troop. There were many officers sitting around him. They were all field officers. The most conspicuous among them were a young lady and a young man. They seemed to be around 20 years old, much younger than the other officers. However, the military emblem on their shoulder was a silver star. They were majors. Mind you, you wouldn't just be promoted based on your ability alone. You couldn't lack enough military exploits. Their military ranks meant that they had achieved a lot of military exploits. It was impressive to be able to attain such glory at a young age. They had a bright future ahead. Niu Li and Nai Zhenqiang were sitting on Song Wanjiang's left. The instructors from Xingshan Military Academy and Yunkong Military Academy were present on the scene. Song Wanjiang looked at the young figures below and smiled. Look at these youngsters. I wonder if there will be any outstanding students among them. A face appeared in Niu Li's mind instinctively. He also remembered Nai Zhenqiang's reminder about Wang Ting. He said with a strange expression, maybe. Oh. Song Wanjiang was startled. Did someone catch your fancy? The young male major beside Song Wanjiang smiled gently and asked. His gaze was sharp. Let's wait for his performance. Niu Li glanced at the young man, but he didn't reply to his question. I saw Lieutenant Colonel Niu bringing our junior sisters and brothers over. Is he among them? The young female major smiled and chimed in. Kong Li, you haven't been paying attention to your alma mater, have you? Nai Zhenqiang suddenly smiled. Instructor Nai, I just came back from a mission. I didn't even go home during Chinese New Year. How would I have the time to see them? Kong Li said bitterly. Haha, as a soldier, this is inevitable. Since you don't know anything, you must pay attention later, Nai Zhenqiang said in a mysterious tone. Kong Li's eyes lit up. She smiled and said, it looks like there is an impressive student in our school this year. The young male officer's face glowed with interest. Anticipating Huang Hai's performance now, Song Wanjiang laughed and replied. I think you won't be disappointed, Nai Zhenqiang said with confidence. All right. It's about time. Let's get started. Song Wanjiang stood up. His voice echoed through the arena. Chapter 402, How Miserable. Although Song Wanjiang's voice wasn't loud, it entered everyone's ear clearly. This was a merit of martial warriors. They didn't need loudspeakers. The recruits below focused their attention on him. Song Wanjiang quickly explained the rules and mode of this military drill. To put it simply, the students could freely choose the challenge mode they wanted for this military drill. Every recruit had to fight, and they were only given 5 minutes of performance time. Their opponents were the veterans on the other side of the arena. I've finished what I have to say. We will now proceed with the military drill. Let's start with Yunkong Military Academy. Song Wanjiang sat down after he was done. The recruits from Yunkong Military Academy were shocked. They didn't think they would be the first to go up. This was the first time everyone was experiencing this military drill. They had no prior experience, so they hoped they could watch others first. The one who went up first would suffer. But they had no choice. The instructor from Yunkong Military Academy stood up from the spectators' stand and leaped down with a tap of his feet. He landed beside the recruits from his school and started arranging the fighting order. On the other side of the arena, the veterans sat down cross-legged, calmed and composed. They waited quietly. Seeing them so composed, Wang Ting followed suit. He remained silent and sat down cross-legged. At the same time, he winked at Han Zhu and Wn Baiqiu, signaling them to sit down. The two of them hesitated. They felt speechless too. This fellow was so casual. There was strict enforcement of the order in the military, though the rules were slightly relaxed for martial warriors. However, with so many bosses present, who dared to sit down before they did? Thus, a scene clearly stood out from the rest. All the recruits were standing. Only Wang Ting was sitting on the ground. This fellow is interesting. Song Wanjiang smiled. I can't see any respect for military orders on him. Is he really groomed by a military academy? The young male major frowned and asked. He's a little special. Nai Zhenqiang was a little furious inside. Even though it was a small matter, Wang Ting was still embarrassing him. The match hadn't started yet, and he had already started creating trouble. No wonder the president specially reminded him when he passed Wang Ting to him. As expected, this fellow was hard to groom. Suddenly, he felt fortunate that he didn't allow Wang Ting to use the brick. Who knew what ridiculous scenes that fellow would cause if he did? Song Wanjiang glanced at Nai Zhenqiang and smiled. It's all right. As martial warriors, we don't need to go by the rules all the time. We must listen to orders in important matters, but we don't have to be so strict on small issues. His voice resounded through the arena as he spoke to the people below, Those that aren't fighting can sit. The recruits who were standing obediently immediately sat down. Look at how nervous you were, Wang Teng said. Han Zhu and Wn Baiqiu rolled their eyes at him. Sure, you're amazing. After some time, a recruit from Yunкong Military Academy stood up and applied strength in his legs. He jumped onto the arena and said, Ku Hua from Yunкong Military Academy, 4-star soldier level, please take care of me. They sent a 4-star soldier level as the first candidate. Han Zhu was surprised. There are so many bosses here, so the first match must be spectacular. Wn Baiqiu was in deep thought. Wang Ting kept quiet. Judging from their words, he guessed that the 4-star soldier level was the highest among the Yunкong Military Academy recruits. That wasn't strange. After all, in Huanghai, only Han Zhu had managed to reach the 5-star soldier level. Someone stood up among the veterans. It was a youth with tanned skin who looked slightly past 20 years old. He tapped his feet on the ground and landed in the arena. He smiled and said, Shun Kai, 3-star soldier level. 3-star soldier level. Ku Hua's expression changed. The veterans sent a 3-star soldier level martial warrior. Were they looking down on him? Mind you, as 4th-year students, they had undergone many missions, so Ku Hua felt that he wouldn't be any weaker than these military martial warriors. He never expected them to underestimate him. The recruits from Yunкong Military Academy were also furious. These veterans were humiliating them by sending a 3-star soldier-level martial warrior to fight against their 4-star soldier-level martial warrior. The recruits from Huanghai Military Academy and Xingshan Military Academy were startled when they saw this. They want to give us an opening gambit, Han Zhu whispered with a stern face. Interesting. Aren't they afraid of failing this seemingly easy task? Wang Teng smiled and wondered aloud. In the arena, Shun Kai took out his battle blade and pointed it diagonally at the ground. He said, let's start. You only have 5 minutes. Damn it, don't look down on me. Ku Hua was infuriated. He held his battle sword, and green force light started glowing around his body. He dashed towards his opponent. He released all his strength the moment he attacked. He waved his battle sword, turning it into multiple rays of green sword auras. Shun Kai was surrounded in the center. Boom. Force exploded. The power was stunning. Shun Kai remained indifferent. The next instant, he charged right into the sword glow circle. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 sword lights landed on his body. Ku Hua was elated. He took a step forward and wanted to pursue his victory. At that moment, a glistening blade appeared in front of his throat without any warning. You lost. A sword wound, no, a scratch, had appeared on Shun Kai's face. Fresh blood dripped down his cheeks, but he remained composed. How? How is that possible? Ku Hua widened his eyes in shock. He was in a daze. He lost. He lost to a 3-star soldier-level martial warrior, and he lost so easily. He was trounced. Ku Hua felt confused. He couldn't accept the result. He wasn't the only one either. The other recruits were flabbergasted too. Were the veterans all so strong? One move, and Ku Hua lost. He didn't even have the time to release his ultimate attack. This was a devastating loss. As expected of martial warriors who have been on the battlefield. Shun Kai grabbed the opportunity accurately and won using the easiest method with the least consequences. Look at him. He only has 3 wounds on his arms and face. Those are all scratches, not serious at all. Wang Ting shook his head. If this was war, Ku Hua would have been killed in a single move. This is probably the difference between veterans and us. Han Zhu smiled bitterly. In the past, he was extremely confident of his ability. But after Ku Hua's loss, he was hesitant. The difference was too much. You are treading on the brink of life and death when you're on the battlefield. They have gained their experience from the gates of hell. We are still way behind, Wn Baiqiu sighed and said. Is this what Instructor Nai meant by a little more powerful and slightly more experienced? Han Zhu was speechless. Mph, that old man can't be trusted. Wang Teng scoffed. Han Zhu and Wn Baiqiu. The battle lasted less than a minute. The 2 parties went down the arena, and the next contestants went up. There were close to 100 recruits from Yunкong Military Academy, but they only spent slightly more than an hour competing. The worst thing was, Yunкong Military Academy was totally defeated. No one was spared. Some were defeated by veterans at a lower level. Some were defeated by same-level martial warriors. But none of them won. It was tragic. The face of the instructor from Yunкong Military Academy was as black as the bottom of a pot. Damn it, everyone lost. How ruthless. He really wanted to curse. Chapter 403, Battlefield Awareness. Yunкong Military Academy was utterly defeated. All the recruits felt embarrassed and humiliated. The recruits from Xingshan Military Academy and Huanghai Military Academy grew nervous. They didn't feel schadenfreude at all. It would be their turn soon. They had closely observed the duels just now. These veterans were very experienced. Wait, rather than saying they were experienced in battles, it was more accurate to say that they had battle awareness. The battle awareness of these veterans was ingrained in their bones. The recruits from top military academies knew this, but they couldn't do anything. Battle awareness couldn't be formed within a day. It required an accumulation of trials and tribulations. The recruits from the other two military academies could only stare at the duel process, trying to cram whatever they could learn at the last minute so that they wouldn't lose too miserably. However, there was an exception. Wang Ting yawned and silently picked up the attribute bubbles dropped during the last battle. Earth Force *30 Water Force *25 Battlefield Awareness *5 The battle between Yunкong Military Academy and the veterans was lopsided. It ended in the blink of an eye, without any ultimate moves being used. Hence, only a few attributes were dropped, most of them the 5 elements forces. There weren't any mutated element forces. Well, it was better than none. Fortunately, besides the normal force attributes, there was a new attribute. Battlefield Awareness. It was an attribute belonging to the veterans. As the battlefield awareness merged into his body, images of the slaughter on the battlefield appeared in his mind. Enlightenment was attained in moments of life and death. Wang Ting looked at his attributes panel, and a smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Battlefield Awareness, 56,500, 3-star, 2. This was an unexpected gain. The battlefield awareness of the veterans was powerful. Almost every veteran would drop 3 to 5 points of battlefield awareness in their duel. After fighting with close to 100 recruits from Yunкong Military Academy, Wang Ting received a few hundred points of battlefield awareness. He skipped 1-star and 2-star and went straight to 3-star. Wang Ting recalled the battles of the veterans and compared them with his current state. He realized that most of the veterans were at 3-star for battlefield awareness. Now, he wouldn't have to worry about being trampled by the veterans during his turn. It was hard to say who would be the one getting tormented in the arena later. Unfortunately, Han Zhu and his friends still had to suffer. He looked at Han Zhu and the other students. Poor fellows. This was the first time he had picked up an awareness attribute. It seemed similar to spirit and enlightenment, but it was different too. For instance, this battlefield awareness was a concrete technique. It could be seen as a skill. While Wang Ting was immersed in his thoughts, Song Wanjiang opened his mouth again and said, Xingshan Military Academy can prepare to enter the arena now. The recruits from Xingshan Military Academy felt helpless when they heard this. They knew that this was going to happen. Huanghai was the strongest academy among them, so they would definitely be the last. Hence, they had to go first. After the instructor from Xingshan Military Academy arranged the fight sequence, a young man leaped onto the arena. Yu Jiao from Xingshan Military Academy, 3-star soldier level. Please take care of me. Liu Di, 3-star soldier level. A few veterans exchanged glances with one another, and one of them came into the arena. They were all 3-star soldier level, so the veterans were casual in their attitudes. Anyone that wanted to go could go into the arena. The two of them started fighting directly without wasting any time. Xingshan Military Academy didn't send their strongest participant. Are they planning to struggle for a while longer? Han Zhu pondered. Well, they might have a trick up their sleeve, WN Baiqiu said. They stopped conversing and focused on the battle in front. They didn't want to lose too terribly. Of course, if they could win, that would be the best. The recruits from Xingshan Military Academy entered one by one. Normally, most fourth-year students were 3-star soldier-level martial warriors. However, all of them lost. It was understandable. Battle awareness couldn't be learned in a fight or two. Some people might think that they had grasped the gist after watching a few duels, but once the actual match started, their bodies wouldn't be able to catch up with their thoughts. Ma Pengcheng from Xingshan Military Academy, 4-star soldier level, please take care of me. At this moment, a young man with thick eyebrows walked up the arena and shouted in a clear and loud voice. It's him, Han Zhu suddenly exclaimed. You know him? Wan Baiqiu asked. She was stunned for a moment. I saw one of his matches during the national number 1 martial arts competition. He isn't weak, but he's unlucky. He met a powerful opponent early in the competition and got heavily injured in a vicious duel. His final ranking was probably below 80. Han Zhu felt pity for the young man. The veterans send a 4-star soldier-level martial warrior too. Both parties started their fight. Ma Pengcheng was using a battle blade while the veteran used a long spear as his weapon. An inch longer, an inch stronger. In terms of weapons, the veteran had the advantage. There was finally a change. Ma Pengcheng didn't lose immediately. Instead, he managed to withstand 10 moves, albeit precariously. The recruits from Xingshan Military Academy felt invigorated. They gathered their strength and stared intently at the duel in the arena. Chapter 404. Are you a saint from Saint Seiya? Xingshan Military Academy was wiped out too. Besides Ma Pengcheng, there were a few other 4-star soldier-level martial warriors, but all of them lost. Ma Pengcheng shared his experience with his companions so that they could be mentally prepared, but they were still shocked by the veterans' killing intent. There was no exception. Finally, it was Huanghai Military Academy's turn. Nai Jianqiang arrived in front of the students and said, "You can decide on your order yourself. The sequence doesn't matter." Everyone was speechless. That's it. You're not being a responsible leader. They all complained silently. I'll go first. Du Yu stood up and leaped into the arena, giving off an I might not come back vibe. The recruits from Xingshan Military Academy and Yunkong Military Academy looked in Huanghai's direction. It was universally acknowledged that Huanghai Military Academy was the strongest here. They wondered how they would perform. Du Yu from Huanghai Military Academy, 4-star soldier level, please take care of me. Ran Wei, 4-star. A muscular veteran holding a battle axe in each hand swayed into the arena. The duel started with Ran Wei charging at Du Yu. A thick yellow glow congregated on his battle axes as he smashed them forward. Boom, boom, boom. 2 minutes later, a figure flew out of the arena. Without a doubt, it was Du Yu. Ran Wei shook his head as he walked down the arena. He hadn't fought to his heart's content. Huanghai Military Academy deserves their reputation. Their first contestant persevered for close to 3 minutes. The Xingshan Military Academy and Yunkong Military Academy recruits had to admit that this student from Huanghai was more powerful than their strongest recruit. Next, the recruits from Huanghai came forward one by one. None of them won, but everyone lasted longer than the other schools. This indirectly portrayed the difference in strength between Huanghai and the other 2 schools. Finally, only Wan Baiqiu, Han Zhu, and Wang Teng were left. I'll go first. You too can be the climax. Wan Baiqiu smiled and leaped onto the arena. A female soldier came up. She was a 4-star soldier-level martial warrior, too, on par with Wan Baiqiu. Her weapon was a chain wrapped around her waist. She untied the chain and held it between her hands. The 2 ends of the chain dropped to the ground. One end had a sharp angular lock, while the other end had a round lock. Wang Teng was stunned. Nebula chain? 1. Weapon of Shun, are you Andromeda Shun? 2. Character from Saint Seiya. He stared at the female veteran's throat and found no Adam's apple. This was a pretty young lady. Shun was a cute young man. Wang Teng got excited. This was the first time he saw such a weapon, so he found it fascinating. The battle started. WN Baichio held her long whip and swung it at her opponent. The female soldier released her force and instilled it on her chain. Clang! The chains on the ground twirled around her as if they were alive. The end with the sharp lock flung towards the long whip. The two of them fought for more than 3 minutes. Then, the female soldier smiled. Her chain danced in the air and circled the long whip. In an instant, it arrived in front of WN Baichio, and the sharp lock stopped at her nose. WN Baichio left dejectedly. She had given it her best. Her opponent was hard to deal with, and her weapon was rare. It was a feat for her to have persevered so long. After she went down, Han Zhu entered the scene. He said calmly, "Han Zhu from Huanghai Military Academy, 5-star soldier level." Silence. The first 5-star soldier level recruit had appeared. A 4th-year student who could reach 5-star soldier level was an impeccable talent. Some figures sitting in the spectators' stand focused on Han Zhu. 5-star soldier level was a high level. A 5-star soldier level martial warrior could undertake tasks alone on the battlefield. All he lacked were military exploits to convince the crowd. "Is this your trump card?" Song Wanjiang smiled and asked Nai Jianqiang. "Han Zhu is not bad, but we have a student who hasn't entered the arena yet," Nai Jianqiang replied. "Oh, that fellow." Song Wanjiang looked at the nonchalant young man below in astonishment. He could tell that this young man was different. He was composed and didn't seem anxious at all, even after watching all the matches. He seemed very confident in himself. On the veteran's side, a young officer slightly more than 20 years old was sitting right in front. His features were rugged and stern. The emblem on his shoulder showed that he was a first lieutenant. All this while, his eyes were closed. He didn't seem interested in the duels in front. The other veterans looked at this young man. 5-star soldier level. They had to rely on him. The first lieutenant opened his eyes and stood up. He tapped his feet on the ground and landed in the arena before speaking in a calm voice. 5-star soldier level, Zhuo Ying. Han Zhu held his long rod and spread out his force wings behind his back. He flew into the air. Zhuo Ying didn't waste any time. He released his wings and shot towards Han Zhu with his battle sword. The two of them collided in mid-air, and explosions kept echoing in the arena. 5 minutes passed quickly. The two of them separated, wounds riddling both of their bodies. Blood dripped down the edge of Zhuo Ying's lips. He had suffered some internal injuries. Han Zhu was worse off, though. There were sword wounds all over his body, and blood oozed out from the wounds. Everyone was amazed. Han Zhu from Huanghai Military Academy was able to fight with a 5-star soldier-level veteran for 5 entire minutes without losing. From their condition, it was easy to tell that Zhuo Ying was stronger. If they continued fighting, Zhuo Ying had a high chance of winning. Han Zhu is not bad. I believe that he will grow quickly after gaining some experience on the battlefield, Song Wanjiang praised. His eyes were shining. This was the first time he complimented a recruit ever since the military drill had started. Nai Jianqiang beamed happily. The performance of his students had exceeded his expectation. Furthermore, he still had a trump card. This was the real surprise he had prepared for them. "All right, you can show your trump card now." Song Wanjiang noticed his anticipating gaze and smiled. Wang Ting was speechless as he looked at Han Zhu walking down. "This is just a drill. Why push yourself so hard?" "Seriously." Han Zhu smiled awkwardly. "I have to earn some respect for our school. I'll pass the rest to you. Don't worry." Wang Ting stood up and stretched his back. He floated into the air without any extra movement and soared towards the arena. "What?" Everyone stared at Wang Ting floating above the arena in disbelief. At this moment, they had lost all their words. Riding on air. He was at least at the 7-star soldier level. Wang Teng glanced around him and said calmly, "Wang Teng from Huanghai Military Academy, 7-star soldier level. Please take care of me." Gasp. Everyone sucked in a mouth of cold air. He was really at the 7-star soldier level. The students from Xingshan Military Academy and Yunkong Military Academy had watched the national number 1 martial arts competition, so they knew he had reached the 6-star soldier level. Yet, he didn't remain at that level for long. He had reached the 7-star soldier level. How did this fellow cultivate? How did he manage to improve so quickly? Monster. The veterans opposite him widened their eyes in surprise. 7-star soldier level. The most powerful veteran among them was Zhuo Ying. However, there were 2 levels of difference between them. How were they supposed to fight? Damn it, why is there a monster among the recruits? This doesn't make sense. Song Wanjiang stood up abruptly. There was a moment of silence before he shook his head and looked at Nai Zhenqiang. He gave a bitter smile and said, "Your surprise is honestly a bit too huge." Chapter 405. Time to loosen my muscles. Numerous gazes from all directions landed on the young man standing tall and straight in midair. They were in a daze. 7-star soldier level. Most people would not be able to reach this stage even after cultivating for tens of years. There were many 4-star and 5-star soldier level martial warriors here, but it was impossible to know if they could advance to the 7-star level in the future. Yet, this fellow had managed to achieve something that people spent tens of years to realize. This was incredible. Was this the difference between a human and a god? At first, Zhuo Ying wanted to enter the arena. The last recruit wouldn't be weaker than Han Zhu. After all, they should have saved the best for the last. As the most powerful veteran among the veteran representatives this time, who else could handle that fellow? Unfortunately, he didn't expect that fellow to be so powerful. This wasn't a little sheep. He was a ferocious tiger hidden among the sheep herd. F***K, this brat is a bug. What's the point of fighting with him? The corners of his eyes twitched. He resisted the urge to curse and went back to join his companions, sitting down cross-legged on the ground. Does anyone want to fight this guy? I'm not going to fight him. Song Wanjiang regained his senses and sat down again. He wanted to take back his words. This wasn't a surprise. This was a bomb, one that almost blew his mind away. Beside him, Kong Li and the young male major gasped in shock. It took them some time to regain their composure. Instructor Nai, this is our junior from Huanghai? Kong Li asked in disbelief. Of course, this fellow is from Huanghai. You might not know, but he's the champion of the national #1 martial arts competition this year, Nai Zhenqiang said proudly. The champion of the national #1 martial arts competition. Kong Li's eyes widened. She was astounded and elated at the same time. After so many years, our Huanghai finally became the champion. This is a first. The young male major's expression changed again. He knew what the national #1 martial arts competition represented. That was a grand stage set for the talents from all over the country to perform. This fellow had defeated all the other talents to become the champion. He wasn't a simple fellow. Haha, none of us expected it either. Nai Zhenqiang laughed. Then, he said mysteriously, guess what year he's in? Stop keeping us in suspense. Tell us the answer quickly. Song Wanjiang was curious as he urged Nai Zhenqiang hurriedly. He had a thought in his heart. He's a freshman. Nai Zhenqiang sniggered and told them the answer directly after hearing Song Wanjiang's words. Freshman. Kong Li exclaimed in surprise. Then, she asked suspiciously, Instructor Nai, you aren't joking, are you? You can check the facts easily. What's the point of lying to you? Nai Zhenqiang said. Gasp. Kong Li was astounded. How did this junior brother cultivate? He's a talent. You can't use common logic on him. Nai Zhenqiang boasted. He had been waiting for a long time to boast about his student. Interesting. Song Wanjiang laughed. He continued, there's no point in letting anyone below 7-star soldier level fight with him. Who's willing to give him a try? This question was directed at the people beside him. Many officers sitting beside Song Wanjiang had reached the 7-star soldier level. He could only rely on them now. The officers got restless when they heard the invitation. At this moment, the young male major stood up and said, let me do it. I had a few days of break, so we'll take this chance to loosen my muscles. Yuan Xian. Kong Li glared at him. Don't worry, I'm just going to play with him casually. I won't be serious. Yuan Xian smiled. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to be interested in him. Song Wanjiang laughed. This is a rare talent. If I don't take him down a notch, he might get into accidents on the battlefield. Let me teach him a good lesson, Yuan Shen said. Wan Kong Li hesitated, but she remained silent in the end. She hoped that her alma mater would have an outstanding performance during the drill, but she also hoped that her junior would suffer a little setback. After all, this was the purpose of the drill. Back when they had entered the military, they were beaten brutally by their seniors too. Getting beaten keeps you healthy. It's all right. Who hasn't been beaten by their fathers when they were young? It's the same logic. Wan Kong Li convinced herself. Nai Jianqiang remained quiet. Honestly, he also wanted to see how Wang Ting would perform against a veteran. He had heard of this Yuan Shen before. He was a famous character in the military, a talent who earned his name on the battlefield. He entered the military when he was 18 years old. In 10 years, he advanced from a martial disciple all the way to a 7-star soldier-level martial warrior. He wore the major emblem on his shoulders and had a bright future ahead of him. You mustn't look down on his combat prowess. When he was a 4-star soldier-level martial warrior, he had faced a few hundred dark apparitions in a single battle. At that time, most of the dark apparitions were at the 3-star soldier level. There were even a few 4-star soldier level ones. Yet, he slaughtered nearly half of them and held on with all his might until reinforcements arrived. He far exceeded the rest when it comes to battle skills and experience. As a 7-star soldier-level martial warrior now, his ability would only be stronger than before. It was a good idea to let Wang Ting suffer a little in his hands. Go ahead. Song Wanjiang nodded and agreed to let Yuan Shen enter the arena. Yuan Shen took off the military uniform and placed it on his seat. Then, he floated into the air and arrived above the arena. He looked at Wang Ting calmly and said in a composed tone, "I'll be your opponent." It's Major Yuan. Many soldiers in the spectators' stand recognized him and shouted in surprise. No one expected this outstanding military officer to enter the arena. The recruits from the 3 military academies glanced at one another. A major was fighting with Wang Ting, and he seemed famous. He looked very powerful too. They weren't stupid. From the reaction of the soldiers, they guessed that this major wasn't a simple fellow. Wang Ting sized up the person in front of him. He had seen this major sitting beside the deputy chief commander just now. This meant that his position wasn't low, and others had placed high expectations on him. The commotion from the crowd proved that he was famous in the military. To achieve this, a military martial warrior needed to have outstanding capabilities and proud battle achievements. It looked like this man was a formidable opponent. If he wasn't careful, he might lose. Yuan Shen saw his flickering gaze and knew what Wang Ting was thinking. He said calmly, "You should give it your all. If not, you might not even be able to handle 10 of my attacks." Wang Ting frowned. That guy sounded like he was boasting. So repugnant. "So what if you're a veteran? Why are you looking down on me?" At this moment, he finally understood how the recruits felt when they were facing the veterans. These veterans held the recruits in contempt because they thought that they were experienced and had strong battlefield awareness. They felt superior to the recruits. Although this is the truth, it makes me feel exasperated. Since they wanted him to give it his all, he would show them his full potential. Let's see if recruits are really incomparable to veterans. The next instant, an amiable smile appeared on Wang Ting's face. "I won't be polite then." Chapter 406, I'm sorry, did I use too much strength? I will not be polite then. Yuan Shen frowned as he looked at Wang Ting. Why was he speaking so strangely? It might be his illusion, but he felt that Wang Ting's smile was a little perverted. Is this fellow an idiot? Boom. Just as he was daydreaming, Wang Ting dashed towards him from afar and smashed his fist at him. Yuan Shen raised his eyebrows. This young man's momentum was quite intense, but his attack was filled with loopholes. He tilted his body confidently and evaded. F***K, he didn't manage to evade it. Wang Ting lifted up his elbow and hurled it at Yuan Shen from the side. Force squeezed through the air, causing many eruptions. His elbow shot towards Yuan Shen's head like a cannonball. Yuan Shen raised his hands hurriedly to block the attack. Bang! Wang Teng's elbow collided with his arms. Yuan Shen's expression changed. He felt an enormous strength surging towards him, and his entire body was thrown off his feet. The entire arena was silent. The jaws of all the recruits and veterans dropped. They felt that they were looking at something incredible. Major Yuan was pushed back after one round of exchange. He was at a disadvantage. This didn't make sense. I didn't know Wang Ting had such a strong battle awareness. Song Wanjiang was shocked. He shook his head and continued, Yuan Shen has underestimated his opponent. Ha ha ha, look at Yuan Shen's face. Isn't it black? Kong Li laughed uncontrollably as if she saw something comical. Many officers beside her were also chuckling silently. Yuan Shen had always been imposing and confident. Yet, he suffered in the hands of a recruit today. Yuan Shen stopped himself in midair. His expression turned grim, and his gaze turned sharp. He stared at Wang Ting coldly. This brat. He was a little surprised in his heart. He tried his best to control his right hand, preventing it from shivering too obviously. How can he be so strong? And his battlefield awareness, it feels as if he came from the battlefield. Battlefield awareness, 346 1000, 4-star. When the veterans were fighting with the recruits from Yunкong Military Academy, Wang Teng's battlefield awareness had already reached 3-star. After the battle with Xingshan Military Academy and Huanghai Military Academy, his battlefield awareness rose again and hit 4-star. You could say that his battlefield awareness was as powerful as Yuan Shen's. Moreover, Dan Taixian had taught him personally. Her battlefield techniques and skills were many times stronger than these people. Although Wang Ting was always the one getting tormented, the experience of fighting with a general stage martial warrior was extremely precious. It allowed his battle awareness to be multiple times stronger than his peers. It was useless if Yuan Shen wanted to beat him in this area. Wang Ting smiled calmly. Then, he disappeared on the spot and reappeared right beside Yuan Shen. He pushed his fists out and came at him with indomitable strength. Yuan Shen snorted. He took the attack head-on. Boom, boom, boom. The two figures kept flashing in mid-air. Whenever they made contact, deep rumbles would shake their eardrums. Force exploded, and rays of light spread out. My eyes can't keep up with their speed. Hanju rubbed his sore eyes and said helplessly. I lost them a long time ago. The 7-star soldier level is just too powerful. Wen Baiqiu shook her head. They weren't the only ones who felt this way. The other recruits couldn't see their figures either. They could only catch their lingering shadows and force glows. This was different from the national #1 martial arts competition. At that time, there were specialized cameras that allowed them to slow down the video. If not, ordinary people wouldn't be able to see anything. Boom. The two figures parted in mid-air. Yuan Shen's expression turned grave. On the other hand, Wang Teng was calm. There was even a faint smile on his face. Some people even noticed Yuan Shen's trembling hands with their sharp eyes. He seemed to be unable to control them. Yuan Shen didn't gain any benefit. Kong Li exclaimed in shock, her pupils constricting. For the first time, Song Wanjiang became serious. He nodded and said, his strength, battle skills, and battle awareness are on par with Yuan Shen. Where did this monster come from? He asked the question uncontrollably. Kong Li nodded in agreement. She felt the same. This junior brother was a monster. Nai Jianqiang sniggered. What an honor. The battle continued. Only 2 minutes had passed, so the battle was only halfway through. Yuan Shen also realized that his strength was weaker than Wang Teng. His gaze flickered. A battle blade appeared in his hand. This time, he took the initiative and attacked first. He didn't dare to underestimate Wang Teng anymore. If he didn't release his full strength, he might fail at this seemingly easy task. He would become the biggest joke of this year's rookie drill. A manly aura and killing intent exploded from his body. It was ferocious and violent. His battle blade danced in the air, shooting gold blade glows all around. Massacre blade presence. As the blade presence gushed towards Wang Teng, he felt like facing a sea of corpses. Frightening killing intent dawned on him, chilling his bones. His head turned numb. Damn it, I'm not even afraid of general stage martial warriors. Why will I be afraid of your killing intent? Wang Ting's eyes almost popped out of his sockets. His aura intensified, and Mo Q appeared in his hand. Flames circled around him, along with a scary blade. Skyrank blade technique, Big Dipper flaming blade. Blade conscious. Boom. Below the clouds of flames, the killing intent seemed to have met a formidable opponent. It dissipated in an instant. Mo Q slammed down on his head. The flaming blade glow lashed out. Boom. Yuan Xian widened his eyes, his pupils filled with burning flames. He stared at the figure protected by the fire in astonishment. The next moment, he was engulfed in flames. Boom. After getting hit by the blade glow, the flames crashed into the arena below like a shooting star. A loud explosion struck the audience stands, shaking the nearby buildings. Silence. The arena turned dead silent again. A moment later, the flames died down, and the lights disappeared. The scene in the arena was finally revealed. A hole covered with burnt marks and blade marks appeared in the middle of the arena. A figure lay in the deep hole, face facing the sky. His military attire was tattered, and he was covered in blood. Fart. Yuan Xian coughed a mouth of blood. He struggled to crawl up from the deep hole, looking as if he would collapse at any moment. However, his pride wouldn't allow him to fall. Yuan Xian, lost. Pinch me. Am I dreaming? This recruit is incredible. He defeated Yuan Xian. He isn't a human. The audience sitting in the spectators' stand was astounded as they fervently discussed the result among themselves. He's so powerful. The recruits from Yunкong Military Academy and Xingshan Military Academy were bewildered. Their eyes were fixed at the figure in midair. Their gaping mouths let out sighs, feeling utterly convinced. He was a recruit just like them, but he was so outstanding. Respect. Han Zhu's throat felt a little dry. He swallowed a mouth of saliva and said, "One winter break, and he has become stronger again." Wn Baiqiu remained silent for a moment before muttering, "Monster, pervert." Kong Li was at a loss for words. Her little junior brother was terrifying. At first, she felt that Wang Ting might suffer on the battlefield because he had never experienced the brutality of reality even though he was a genius. Hence, she wanted Yuan Xian to rub his morale a little. In the end, their roles were swapped. The one getting rubbed was Yuan Xian. Writer, this script isn't right. Just like the one sitting beside him, Nai Jianqiang was also in disbelief. At first, he hoped that Wang Ting could perform well and last for 5 minutes in the arena. That would be a feat he didn't expect Wang Ting to press Yuan Xian on the ground and push him back and forth. This rubbing was a little ruthless. He was thinking of a way to wrap up the battle. The commotion today was unexpectedly huge. Headache. The authority Yuan Xian had established in the military would definitely be affected after today's defeat. It would hinder his progress in the future. Hopefully, this good young man wouldn't be crippled. Song Wanjiang sighed. He shook his head. No one expected this result. Who would have thought that the one getting defeated would be Yuan Xian? This situation was a little awkward. They wanted to give the recruits an opening gambit, but after this performance, the effects were halved. At this moment, Wang Ting was standing in midair and looking at the miserable Yuan Xian below. A hint of embarrassment appeared on his harmless face. "I'm sorry, did I use too much strength?" Most of the people had just regained their composure. When they heard his words, the corners of their lips twitched. Why does it sound so infuriating? However, you are the one who asked me to give it my all. I was afraid that you wouldn't understand my true capabilities, so I didn't hold back. I didn't do it on purpose or anything. Wang Ting noticed that the atmosphere was a little weird, so he continued in an innocent tone. Fart. Yuan Xian vomited a mouth of blood from anger. His vision turned black, and his whole body started trembling. Everyone was dumbstruck by his words. F***K, how shameless. This fellow is horrible. He won, but he still mocked his opponent. So vicious. This is revenge, right? This must be revenge. It's so obvious. Yuan Xian told Wang Ting that he should give it his all. If not, he might not handle 10 of his attacks. Now, Wang Ting used his words to refute him. I tried my best, but you're the one who couldn't even handle 1 attack from me. What a stab in his heart. However, it felt refreshing for some reason. The recruits from the 3 military academies felt invigorated. Didn't you veterans think that you're amazing? Didn't you all come back from the battlefield? Didn't you all look down on us? Look, you got defeated terribly. Ha ha ha. Song Wanjiang felt his face twitching. He turned to look at Nai Zhenqiang and asked, has he always been so shameless? Ha ha, has a little, hard to control. Nai Zhenqiang laughed awkwardly. Not just a little. Song Wanjiang was speechless. Still, if he had such an outstanding student, he would bear with him no matter how disobedient he was. Compared to his abilities, his flaws were nothing. However, he mustn't let him fool around anymore. This wasn't a good time. Song Wanjiang stood up and opened his mouth. Wang Tengwan, I'm glad there's such a talent in our recruits. This means that we can kill more enemies. The battlefield is forever changing. 1 more formidable warrior means a higher chance of victory. But you have to understand that Wang Ting is different from you. Geniuses are geniuses because they can do what you can't. All of you are a long distance behind him. Hence, Wang Ting can be happy about beating Major Yuan, but you all can't. Remember your defeat today and take it as a warning. The purpose of this drill isn't to let you understand your ability. It's to teach you one thing: there's always someone better than you. At the same time, you all can have a taste of the slaughters on the battlefield. That way, when you enter the battlefield, you won't let down your guard. You will have more chances of survival. Chapter 407, Major Yuan, you're a little narrow-minded. Song Wanjiang's words were like a bucket of cold water pouring down on them. The atmosphere turned solemn. They saw how powerful the veterans were. If they met such enemies on the battlefield, they would be dead without a doubt. The expressions of the recruits turned pale, feeling discouraged. Damn it, why do I feel like I'm here to die? This is so scary. Mommy, I want to go home. Wang Ting felt that Song Wanjiang's words weren't meant for him. If he was strong enough, he would be able to defeat his opponent using any method. He had already walked down the arena and picked up the attribute bubbles Yuan Xian dropped. Massacre Blade Presence *35 Metal Force *150 Spiritual Realm Enlightenment *100 Wang Ting was elated when he saw the content of the bubbles. As expected of a military genius, he had Spiritual Realm Enlightenment. This meant that his talent wasn't low. Also, he had mastered the Massacre Blade Presence. Most importantly, he dropped this attribute. A figure wielding a long blade appeared in Wang Ting's mind with killing intent congregating around it. A mountain of corpses was floating behind the figure. It was terrifying. Boom. Blade glow erupted, and killing intent spread through the air. It was many times stronger than the Massacre Blade Presence Yuan Xian had executed just now. This was the real Massacre Blade Presence. Although Wang Ting only enlightened 1/10 of the Blade Presence, it was already a considerable gain. The potential of this Massacre Blade Presence was huge. It was more powerful than the Flaming Sword Presence, the Metal Blade Presence, and the others. If he was able to push it up to a Blade Conscious, it would be an indomitable move. Song Wanjiang secretly smiled in his heart when he saw the looks of despair on the recruits' faces. He continued, of course, there's no need to worry too much. You are all talented martial warriors from top universities. The military won't just send you to your death. We'll distribute you to different elite teams. You can slowly gain experience and battlefield awareness by starting with the low-level missions. Wang Ting felt his lips twitching when he heard Song Wanjiang's speech. This familiar tone, this familiar scheme, beat you up and give you candy. This man seemed skilled at this move. He must use it more often. Hearing Song Wanjiang's words, the recruits felt relieved. Their emotions also calmed down. Indeed, the military wasn't so cruel. They were talented martial warriors. They wouldn't be sent to their deaths. Song Wanjiang heaved a sigh of relief. These were the expected reactions of the recruits. As the person in charge of the enlistment of recruits, he needed to let them understand the danger of the battlefield while making sure they didn't lose their confidence. It was a tough job. After saying everything he should, he announced the end of the drill and allowed the recruits to go back for some rest. 3 days later, they would officially enter their teams and start doing missions. The veterans knew when to stop, so the recruits didn't suffer many injuries. Most were just external wounds. Only a few students had received slightly more serious injuries because they fought with veterans who were of the equal match. They didn't manage to control themselves properly. Nonetheless, 3 days were enough for them to recover fully. The most tragic person was Yuan Xian. Wang Teng went a little hard on him because he wanted him to know that recruits weren't easy to bully. Actually, he didn't know that Major Yuan would be so easy to defeat. This is a little awkward. I tormented him a bit too much. He's a major. Will he stack the deck against me? Wang Teng couldn't help but look at Yuan Xian. Coincidentally, Yuan Xian was looking at him too. Yes, that gaze. This is a narrow-minded person. There's no way out. If he landed in this major's hand, he would be in trouble. At this moment, Yuan Xian was cursing in his heart. What happened to teaching him a lesson? He was the one who got defeated by a recruit in the end. His face was swollen and burning. He felt that everyone was laughing at him. Come on, let's go back. Han Zhu's voice sounded beside his ear. Wang Teng retracted his gaze and prepared to leave. Before he could take a few steps, he saw Yuan Xian walking directly towards him. Han Zhu and the other students stopped in their tracks. They looked at Wang Teng. Was he here to take revenge on Wang Teng? What's the matter, Major Yuan? Wang Teng raised his eyebrows and asked. You're not bad. I won't lose to you again, Yuan Xian said in a low voice. Wang Teng was startled. Major Yuan, you're a little narrow-minded. Also, where did you get your confidence from? After getting beaten, you still have the guts to fight with me again. Who gave you the courage? Wang Teng was speechless. This fellow lost, but he was still so conceited. Wang Teng felt that he had the responsibility to let this major understand the difference between them. After all, if he lost so terribly again, it would be double the humiliation. His grudge against him would become stronger too. They were both from Black Sparrow Troop, so it wasn't good to be at loggerheads. Better to make friends than enemies. Wang Teng kept this in mind and said shyly, Major Yuan, you might have misjudged my ability. I didn't give it my all just now. Yuan Xian was confused. The veins on his forehead bulged out. To hell with misjudging your ability, to tell with not giving your all. Was he saying that he lost to a recruit who didn't use his full strength? Han Zhu and the other students had weird expressions on their faces. They felt that Wang Teng was evil. Rubbing salt on his wound? It must be painful. Young man, aren't you afraid of angering him? Ha ha ha. At this moment, peals of laughter rang out. Kong Li strode over as she laughed fearlessly. She teased, Yuan Xian, do you feel like a failure? You couldn't even defeat my junior brother when he didn't use his full strength. Do you dare to challenge him again? Kong Li. Yuan Xian's face darkened. He took a deep breath. He brainwashed himself not to get angry, but it was still infuriating. He glared at Kong Li and barked, I can't beat him, but you can't either. What's there to be glad about? So, here's my little junior brother. We're on the same side. Kong Li smiled happily. The next moment, she placed her arm around Wang Teng's shoulder and turned to speak to him. Junior brother, I'm from Huanghai too. I only managed to become a major now, but I think you will be able to catch up with me soon. Before that, feel free to look for me. At first, Wang Teng was puzzled. Who was this beautiful and handsome lady? He didn't know her. After hearing her introduction, he learned that she was his senior. He immediately smiled and said loudly, Nice to meet you, senior sister. Please take care of me. Sure. Kong Li was elated. She looked at his smile and felt that she had made the right choice to recognize this junior. He was pleasant-looking. Yuan Xian was furious. He was disgusted by the way they called each other senior and junior. He turned and walked away. B *** chase. Outrageous. I can't stay here anymore. Don't bother about him. He has always been narrow-minded. He's powerful and gained many military exploits, so he often reprimands university-groomed martial warriors like us. You helped us vent our frustrations today. Kong Li sniggered. She showed no intention of removing her arms around Wang Ting as she led him out of the arena. Come, I'm happy today, so I'll treat you to a meal. Kong Li, don't teach him bad things. Nai Jianqiang walked over and said helplessly. All right. Kong Li waved her hands and dragged Wang Ting away. Han Zhu and Wen Baiqiu stared at each other. Did Wang Ting just get kidnapped by their senior sister? Chapter 408. No one wanted him? Wang Ting felt that senior sister Kong Li wasn't just pretty. Her personality was good too. Burp. He was bloated. There was good wine and delicious force dishes, so he went a little out of control and ate too much. Anyway, they had similar hobbies, so they could interact more in the future. Wang Ting was opening the door of his room when the door beside him opened. Han Zhu popped his head out. Did you have a good time? Looking at his expression, for some reason, Wang Ting sensed an ambiguous vibe. Old Han, after knowing you for some time, I realize that you're getting bolder at being a pervert. Cough, I'm just worried about you. Don't get enchanted by beauty, Han Zhu coughed and replied righteously. Seriously. Wang Ting rolled his eyes. What did he mean by getting enchanted by beauty? They were just exchanging viewpoints on their hobbies. Don't talk if you don't know what to say. Are you getting angry from embarrassment? The door on the other side opened too. Wen Baiqiu leaned against the door frame as she teased him. Why are you joining in? Wang Ting was speechless. I'm just worried about you. Wen Baiqiu shrugged. Seriously, this is enough. Why are you all thinking about these useless things? Shouldn't you spend more time wondering what missions you might face in the future? Wang Ting asked. There's no use thinking about that. We can't make the decision, Han Zhu said. Our capabilities are different, so we'll probably be in different teams, Wen Baiqiu said. Let's meet when we're free and share the information. We can fill in the gaps, Han Zhu suggested. You guys gathered information? Wang Ting was puzzled. Are you saying you didn't prepare anything? Wen Baiqiu was speechless. No one told me. I was thrown to old Nai the moment school started. There was no time for me to check anything. Also, isn't military data confidential? Where did you guys find it? Wang Ting asked in frustration. From the school, of course. They provided a special channel for seniors like us. However, you need school credits, Han Zhu explained. It's normal that you don't know. You're just a little junior brother. Wen Baiqiu smirked. Wang Ting glared at her. This was outrageous. You can join us if you want. We'll discuss it together. A third party is always clear-minded. Who knows, you might see a problem we didn't, Han Zhu said. This is to repay you for making dance for us, Wen Baiqiu agreed casually. The two of them closed their doors and went to rest. Wang Ting smiled and shook his head. They wanted to help him, but they did it so pridefully. For the next 3 days, Wang Ting would meet up with Han Zhu and Wen Baiqiu frequently to discuss the information they had researched. The data they received was different, so they verified and filled up the gaps. Gradually, they understood the Black Sparrow Troop situation. The presence of the troop was to guard the dimensional rift and kill all appearances of dark apparitions. 60 kilometers from the Black Sparrow Troop, there was a dimensional rift. The Black Sparrow Troop was responsible for keeping an eye on it. The Xingwu continent had also sent their troops here. It was called the Radiant Star Troop. These two troops were stationed at the two ends of the dimensional rift. They formed a fan shape with one another, surrounding the dimensional rift in the center. Many garrisons were set up 20 kilometers away from the Black Sparrow City and the Radiant Star City. There were force weapons erected here for frequent cleanings of any dark apparitions. No dark apparition was allowed to escape their encirclement. From this 20-kilometer point to the dimensional rift, the area was segregated into restricted zones with different levels. The closer it was to the dimensional rift, The more powerful the dark apparitions and the larger the number. Hence, the level got higher. There were a total of 4 levels. The dark apparitions on the other end of the dimensional rift didn't want to get restricted, so they would gather occasionally and attempt to break through the encirclement. As one would expect, the casualty count was high in all these battles. This was how the situation was formed. The second day after the drill ended, in a command room somewhere in the military camp, a bunch of officers were gathered together. Kong Li and Yuan Xian were among them too. Yuan, I heard that you got defeated by a recruit. A tall and muscular officer laughed as he turned to Yuan Xian. Yuan Xian remained expressionless, but he cursed in his heart. Enough. Are you all done? Why do you have to say it every time you see me? Who hasn't been defeated? Do you have to rub it every single time? Kong Li looked at his exasperated face and laughed happily. Yuan Xian's expression got darker and darker, but she didn't care. This is lively. Song Wanjiang walked into the command room. Sir. Sir. Everyone saluted him. All right, sit down. Song Wanjiang sat down on the host's seat. He waved his hand and said, I gathered all of you to discuss the distribution of the recruits. All of you should have witnessed the drill that day. I'll send the information of the recruits to you now. If you're interested in any of them, tell me. He waved his hand at a soldier behind him. Then, he leaned back on his chair silently. The soldier distributed the data of the recruits from the 3 military academies down. The only sound that remained in the room was of papers flipping. None of the officers spoke. They were looking through the information carefully. After some time, someone asked, why isn't Wang Ting's data here? We have other arrangements for him. We'll discuss him later. Song Wanjiang rubbed his forehead. He had killed many brain cells trying to find an arrangement for Wang Ting. However, he hadn't succeeded yet. Never mind, he's a 7-star soldier-level martial warrior and probably stronger than me. I can't lead him. The officer asked this question out of pure curiosity. Hence, when he heard Song Wanjiang's reply, he just shook his head. All the recruits found their teams quickly. The recruits might have been trashed by the veterans that day, but these officers knew their pros. The recruits from academies were all fresh troops. The veterans loved them the most, so they got snatched quickly. As for the arrogance of these university-groomed martial warriors, that would be gone after some rough beatings. It wasn't a problem. In the end, only Wang Ting's destination wasn't confirmed. Everyone glanced at one another and started discussing in low voices. Shall we send him to the level 3 restricted zone? Someone asked. Are you crazy? If you're careless, you will easily get surrounded by high-level dark apparitions in there. He won't be able to make it back, someone refuted instantly. That's right. We finally have a genius in our troop. We can't fool around with his posting. We can't keep protecting him either. Wang Tung is powerful. Why are you worried about his safety? Still, we can't send him directly to the level 3 restricted zone for his first mission. There might be 8-star soldier-level dark apparitions. Just as the officers were about to start quarreling, Song Wanjiang knocked on the table. His head was hurting. All right, stop arguing. Everyone kept quiet, and they looked at Song Wanjiang. Song Wanjiang was about to speak, but a knock stopped him. Come in. Song Wanjiang was surprised. Who would come at this moment? A soldier walked in and passed a mission file to Song Wanjiang. He whispered a few words in his ears. Song Wanjiang raised his eyebrows, feeling astounded. Then, he said, I have arrangements for Wang Ting. You are all dismissed. The officers were baffled. This person walked in and said a few words and Wang Ting found his destination? They seemed to know what this meant. Either Wang Ting had attracted the attention of the higher authorities or he had some powerful background unknown to them. That was why the higher authorities assigned his mission personally. Kong Li's interest was piqued. Her little junior brother sure had many secrets. Yuan Xian's gaze flickered. He temporarily extinguished the idea of taking revenge on Wang Ting in other places. Indeed, Wang Ting was different from normal recruits. He couldn't get hold of him so easily. The other officers quickly left the command room without probing further. After they left, Kong Li walked beside Yuan Xian and said, "Did you receive the mission? It requires us to work together to ambush one of the dark apparitions' garrisons." "I received it." Yuan Xian immediately threw away the grudges between them the second they talked about work. He frowned and said, "The mission is a little strange this time. It requires us to work together. That garrison must be special. I heard that they caught the presence of 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions there. They must be planning something." Kong Li nodded. "That means that we must kill them." A malicious smile appeared on Yuan Xian's face. "Anyway, have you recovered from the injuries you got from my little junior brother? I hope it won't affect the mission," Kong Li suddenly said. Yuan Xian's expression froze instantaneously. "Again, why do you keep mentioning it? Are you trying to anger me to death so that you can snatch my inheritance?" The anger in his heart exploded. A devil crept up his mind and started cursing and shouting crazily. He was furious. He glared at Kong Li and shouted, "Get out! Ha ha ha!" The two of them parted in discord. 3 days passed quickly. On the gathering day, Nai Jianqiang led his students to the arena. "You can only rely on yourselves during the mission. I hope that 3 months later when I come to fetch you all of you will stand unscathed in front of me." Nai Jianqiang looked at them intently before turning and leaving. Han Zhu and the other students felt sorrow and grief. It was as if they were leaving the protection of their parents. The recruits from Xingshan Military Academy and Yunkong Military Academy were present too. Their instructors left after speaking to them for some time. Soon, only the recruits from the 3 military academies were left at the venue. Many officers came in. "When your names are called, gather behind me." Wang Teng watched as the people around him got lesser and lesser. In the end, everyone left. Even Han Zhu and Wn Baiqiu found their teams. They glanced at him before departing. Wang Teng stood on the spot, confused. "What's happening? Does no one want me? I'm so outstanding. Are you all blind? Can't you see? Or did someone miss my name and forgot about me?" A cold breeze blew past him. A few withered leaves spiraled around his head before one of them landed on his crown. At this moment, Wang Teng felt that he was surrounded by evil intentions. Chapter 409. Entering the restricted zone. Wang Teng waited in the arena for a long time. Just when the bitterness in his heart was about to explode, he heard the roar of an engine. He looked in the direction of the sound. An armored car drove over from afar at a breakneck speed. When it almost reached him, the car did an emergency brake. The ear-piercing screech of the tires rubbing against the ground drilled into his ears. The car skidded and parked inches away from Wang Teng. The strong wind blew Wang Teng's fringe up. He looked a little absent-minded. Kong Li popped her head out of the car window. She stared at Wang Ting with a strange look and said, "Get in." "Wait, what's the meaning of this?" Wang Teng was stunned. "It means that you're doing a mission with us," Kong Li said. "Get in. I'll explain to you on the way." Wang Ting didn't hesitate anymore. He got into the back seat and was shocked once again. There was a man sitting beside him, giving off a cold vibe. It was Yuan Xian. "Haha, Major Yuan is here too." Wang Teng chuckled. The corners of Yuan Xian's lips twitched involuntarily. His face was black, but he didn't say anything. You could imagine how hopeless he felt when he suddenly heard that he had to work together with Wang Teng on the mission. Kong Li sniggered. She started the engine and drove out of the city. Wang Ting smirked to himself when he saw Yuan Xian remaining silent. He didn't mind as he knew that he had given Yuan Xian a huge blow. Kong Li said, "The 3 of us will be the main force for this mission. 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions have been spotted at their number 53 garrison in the southwest. There might even be more powerful dark apparitions there. Our aim is to investigate and find the purpose of the dark apparitions. If necessary, we will take action and kill them. Of course, we'll try our best not to alert them if there's no need to." "Sounds exciting," Wang Ting touched his chin and said. He was given an important mission for his first task. The higher authorities had high hopes for him. "It's exciting, but it's dangerous too." Kong Li smiled. Although she said that it was dangerous, there was no fear on her face. She looked as if she was joking. Listen to orders during the mission. Don't drag us down, Yuan Xian said grimly. Normally, the weak ones are the ones who drag others down, right? Wang Teng smiled as he stared at him. Yuan Xian. Don't listen to him. He's not the leader of this mission. He doesn't have the commanding power. Kong Li bashed him further. There's no leader for this mission. Wang Teng was surprised. There is. You will know who it is later, Kong Li said. The armored vehicle reached the entrance of Black Sparrow City as they were speaking. They showed their identity cards, and the guards inspected them before letting them go. The armored vehicle drove out of the city, but it stopped again not far away from the entrance. Lieutenant Colonel Niu Li, whom Wang Ting had seen before, was standing at the side of the road. He seemed to have been waiting for them for a long time. After they parked the car, he opened the car door and sat on the passenger's seat. What took you so long? Niu Li frowned as he asked. We went to pick him up. Kong Li pointed behind with a smirk. Lieutenant Colonel Niu. Wang Teng greeted him. It looked like Niu Li was the leader of this mission. Suddenly, he realized that Niu Li and Kong Li's names were similar. He couldn't help but size up their faces. One was rough-looking, while the other was like a blossoming flower. It was a weird feeling. His expression turned a little strange. Fortunately, these two people weren't relatives. Wang Teng started having wild thoughts. Kong Li and Yuan Xian greeted Niu Li too. Their military ranks were only one level lower than Niu Li's, but they showed great respect towards him. Niu Li was a much more seasoned warrior. He had more battle and mission experiences than them. Niu Li nodded. He didn't continue and asked instead, do you know the summary of the mission? The three nodded. Wang Teng, you're a recruit. Do you have any questions? Niu Li asked. No questions. Awaiting your order, Wang Teng said righteously. The muscles on Yuan Xian's face twitched. Damn it, he said the same thing just now and got a rebuttal from Wang Teng. Yet, he was acting all obedient now. Why didn't he refute Niu Li too? Niu Li was satisfied with Wang Teng's attitude. During the military drill, he had sensed something strange from Wang Teng. He asked Nai Jianqiang after he went back and got to know that this young man wasn't easy to deal with. From the looks of it, this genius recruit might be a little cheeky, but he still understood the big picture. This was a promising young fellow. The armored vehicle drove for 20 kilometers. As they headed deeper, their surroundings got more and more desolate. All they could see was black sand and barren land. The harsh environment here was out of Wang Ting's expectations. Sir. A respectful voice was heard. They had arrived at the closest Black Sparrow garrison. Kong Li showed her identity card, and the guard immediately saluted her with respect. Most of these soldiers were ordinary people. They were in charge of operating large-sized rune weapons. Only a small portion were martial warriors. Wang Ting sized up his surroundings curiously when he entered the garrison. He realized that this garrison was built entirely out of steel. From the internal structure, he could see traces of runes carved on the surface of the steel. This meant that the garrison possessed rune defense. However, the exterior of the garrison was still filled with dents and scratches. There were all kinds of bullet marks and weapon prints. The garrison wasn't small. It could hold a few hundred soldiers, and the facilities were complete. Large firearms could be seen everywhere. It was armed from head to toe. We have rune weapons, but dark apparitions have them too. High-level dark apparitions are as smart as humans, Kong Li explained when she noticed Wang Ting's gaze. Wang Ting nodded. It wasn't hard to guess. If the dark apparitions didn't have rune weapons, the humans would have won the war already. Also, the damage caused by rune weapons to high-level dark apparitions was limited. A rune weapon could only cause huge damage if it was operated by a powerful martial warrior like Wang Teng. Even more, it had to be a formidable weapon, for instance, the fire god cannon. They parked the armored vehicle and alighted. We'll be entering the restricted zone now. Dark apparitions might appear any time. Be careful. Niu Li reminded them. Kong Li and Yuan Xian were used to it, so his reminder was directed at Wang Teng. Wang Teng nodded. He knew that he should speak less and be more aware of his surroundings from now on. He caught up with the three seniors. Actually, with their speed, they could cover 20 kilometers easily by flying. However, they chose to drive instead. Wang Teng didn't ask the reason. He wasn't stupid. He had his own guesses. This was taught during his school lessons. You must always be in your best form when you were on the battlefield. This would allow you to handle all kinds of accidents properly. His seniors didn't want to waste their stamina and force. As they walked, Niu Li and Kong Li taught Wang Ting how to hide, observe the ambush locations, and set traps. Chapter 4:10, Rest in Peace. The black soil was pungent, and the stench spread in the air. The four soldiers vigilantly pushed forward. Niu Li and Kong Li had nothing against Wang Ting, so their relationship was not bad. They told him everything he should know. Besides teaching him how to ambush and set up traps, they also taught him how to differentiate the footprints of the dark apparitions, how to track enemies, and many other things. There were various types of dark apparitions. Experienced soldiers were able to decipher the type of dark apparition based on the footprints alone. This knowledge was taught in school, but merging the theory and actual situation still required some time. Wang Teng followed them and absorbed the knowledge like a sponge. He kept learning and improving. He also discovered that the surroundings weren't barren anymore. There were some plants growing sparsely. These plants weren't ordinary. Wang Teng had already activated his spiritual sight. Based on his spiritual realm now, he could support his spiritual sight for a long time. Under his spiritual sight, he could see the faint glows of dark force hovering around the plants. These plants were contaminated by dark force and had undergone a mutation. Actually, he could tell that they were different without his spiritual sight. The plants were pitch black, and they had strange shapes. Some were like fangs, while others looked like the blade of a saw. They were extremely sharp. It was easy to tell that these weren't ordinary plant. If normal soldiers get pricked or scratched by these plants, they will get contaminated by dark force. If they don't get treated in time, they will lose their limb. For more serious cases, they will assimilate, Kong Li said. Splurt. Suddenly, a trumpet-shaped plant spurted some thick black liquid straight at Wang Teng. Wang Teng remained calm. He twirled his feet and evaded the liquid. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. When the black liquid landed on the ground, black smoke rose into the air. Oh right, they will attack passers-by too. This is their way of hunting after they mutate. These dark plants are vicious, Kong Li said nonchalantly. To hell with being vicious. If you know that they're dangerous, why didn't you remind me earlier? Can you be more serious? Wang Teng raised his eyebrows, feeling speechless. Kong Li had explained many things to him, but she only opened her mouth after things happened. Actually, you will learn this in your second and third years. Unfortunately, you are only a freshman, Kong Li snorted. Wang Ting. Is it my fault that I'm only a freshman? A smile appeared at the edge of Yuan Xian's eyes when he saw Wang Ting's exasperated look. No matter how powerful a recruit is, he still has his flaws. He will suffer in the hands of a veteran. Personal experience will help you remember it better. Kong Li waved her hands and replied indifferently. Also, with your ability, it will be a joke if you can't dodge this. Alright, you're my senior. Everything you say is right. Wang Teng didn't counter. Indeed, these dangers were nothing to him. Suddenly, his pupils stopped moving. Kong Li and the others stopped too. Niu Li opened his mouth and asked, "Who's going to take care of it?" Kong Li and Yuan Xian didn't move. Wang Ting had no choice. He shifted his body and traveled 100 meters in a split second. A low-level dark apparition was crawling on the ground. Although it still had the shape of a human, its face was like a devil's. It was savage and hideous. The flesh on its body protruded out of its skin. Black blood oozed out, and the bones could be seen clearly. A normal person would be frightened to death if they saw this scene. When it saw Wang Teng, the low-level dark apparition hissed and pounced on him. As Wang Ting scanned the dark apparition's body, his gaze froze. However, he waved his hand the next moment, and a ball of flame swallowed the dark apparition. Roar! The dark apparition turned into ashes under the high heat. The cold wind from afar carried the ashes along with it. Rest in peace. Wang Ting's gaze was cold, his expression calm. He wasn't speaking to the dark apparition. Instead, he was talking to the human soldier that got contaminated by dark force. This was because he saw the human military uniform worn by the dark apparition. This was a human who got transformed into a dark apparition. You did well. Never hesitate in a situation like this. To them, death is their freedom. Niu Li walked over and said. Many warriors die on the battlefield. Death is not scary. However, we'll never be slaves to the dark. Do you like to lament and make emotional comments after staying on the battlefield for a long time? Wang Tung smiled and teased him. Niu Li. He remained silent for some time before he said, You're indeed different. I'll take that as a compliment. Wang Teng wasn't affected, accepting the praise directly. Shouldn't we be leaving? They continued their journey again. Along the way, they met a few dark apparitions traveling alone and took care of them. The levels of the dark apparitions in the level 1 restricted zone weren't high. They killed them as easily as killing an ant. Wang Teng couldn't help but remember the time when he met a dark apparition for the first time. That was a huge scare. He had to exert himself to get rid of the low-level dark apparition. Now, these low-level dark apparitions weren't even appetizers. There was a cleaning recently, so there weren't many dark apparitions. They didn't meet any accidents and successfully entered the level 2 restricted zone. The plants were denser in this region, with low bushes and small forests clustered here and there. Swoosh! Along with a rubbing sound, the poisonous insects scurried towards the martial warriors when they sensed their presence. Wang Ting, burn them with your flames. Kong Li knew that Wang Teng possessed fire force, so she ordered him directly. Wang Teng didn't dawdle. Fire force was really convenient at times. He waved his hand, and the poisonous insects around them died immediately. Many small bubbles were dropped. Poison force *1 dark force *1 dark force *2 poison force *1 Wang Teng gained a small amount of poison force and dark force. However, he spared some of the poisonous creatures. He knocked them unconscious and kept them in bottles. Then, he stored them in his space ring. Why are you keeping them? Kong Li frowned as she asked. In bringing them back for research, Wang Teng placed the last horrendous-looking poisonous bug into the bottle as he replied. He studied the bug curiously. You have a strange interest. Kong Li was baffled. There's nothing wrong with analyzing them. However, be careful since these poisonous insects have been contaminated by dark force. Don't let them escape. The consequences are dire, and you will be held responsible, Niu Li reminded him. Don't worry. I can kill these poisonous bugs easily. There won't be a problem, Wang Tang replied. He wanted to examine these poisonous bugs because he noticed that they were contaminated by dark force. After all, he possessed both dark force and poison force. Niu Li didn't stay on the topic. He took the lead and continued heading to the level 3 restricted zone. More than an hour later, they reached the edge of the level 2 restricted zone and heard the sound of fighting. Their expressions changed. They hastened their pace and dashed towards the source of the sound. Wang Ting's gaze flickered. He followed them hurriedly. When they arrived at the scene, they saw a cleaning squad in a heated battle with the dark apparitions. There were around 10 human martial warriors, 3 of them at the 4-star soldier level. There were around 40 normal soldiers in their team. On the other hand, there were close to 100 dark apparitions. Most of them were low-level dark apparitions, but there were about 7 4-star soldier-level dark apparitions. These dark apparitions were lofty and huge. They were extremely muscular. The muscles beneath their green-black skin seemed as hard as steel. Their faces were ferocious, and they had jagged teeth like a saw. Their eyes were bigger than ping-pong balls. They held weapons that looked like maces, and their brutality was terrifying. They are giant apparitions, Yuan Xian said sternly. The battle had already started. The giant apparitions charged towards the humans and swung their maces. A human 4-star soldier-level martial warrior wanted to block the attack, But his weapon broke instantly. His chest was smashed, and he was sent flying into the air. His breathing got heavy. Obviously, he was in critical condition. The low-level dark apparitions shot towards the human soldiers and bit whoever they could get their hands on. Wang Teng and the officers were still a distance away. When they saw this scene, they were furious. They accelerated their speed to their maximum as they flew towards the battlefield. Faster, faster. They were already proceeding at their fastest speed, but they still had to witness many human soldiers getting surrounded and bitten to death by the dark apparitions. Their screams of agony and pain before they died echoed in the air. Wang Teng turned into a gust of wind and dashed past the 3 officers. Die! He attracted the attention of the dark apparitions with his bellow. One of the giant apparitions gave a hideous smile and wanted to grab him with its large palm. A golden brick appeared in Wang Teng's hand. Amidst the confused gaze of the dark apparition, he smashed it on its head. Boom! The earth shook. The giant apparition got knocked into the ground by Wang Teng's brick. Its neck had disappeared, and its head sunk into its chest. Blood was dripping down its eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. It died in an odd posture. The human soldiers and the dark apparitions with intelligence were dumbstruck when they saw this scene. Reinforcements are here. The human soldiers immediately regained their senses and cheered. Kill! Kill them! The morale of the soldiers rose as they hurled themselves at the dark apparitions. The giant apparitions roared in anger when they saw their companion getting killed. In an instant, 4 giant apparitions surrounded Wang Teng. Wang Teng's gaze didn't change. Come on. I can finally use my brick to my heart's content. Boom. He didn't use any battle techniques. All he did was fling his brick at the giant apparitions. The air around the brick erupted, and the dark apparitions were beaten to death. Their dying posture was tragic to the extreme. Please take the first giant apparition as a reference. Wang Teng turned around. He wanted to smash the other giant apparitions with his brick, but Kong Li and the officers had arrived by now. They took 1 giant apparition each and killed them easily. It was a piece of cake. Wang Teng had no choice but to target the low-level dark apparitions. The addition of 4 7-star soldier-level martial warriors turned the tide of the battle. The dark apparitions were killed quickly. The casualties of the human soldiers were kept to a minimum. After Kong Li and the officers took care of all the dark apparitions, they raised their heads and scanned their surroundings. They were stunned. There were numerous posts erected on the ground. Wait, those weren't wooden posts. They were dark apparitions who got hammered into the ground forcefully. They turned and looked at Wang Teng. The item in his hand had caught their attention. A brick. Chapter 4:11, Destroying My Image. Kong Li and the others went berserk when they saw the item in Wang Teng's hand. Astonishment. Disbelief. The atmosphere turned strange. Niu Li finally understood why Nai Zhenqiang reminded Wang Teng repeatedly not to use the brick during the military drill. 1 brick, 1 enemy. His actions were so smooth and violent that he was lost in wonder. Even the giant apparitions, who were known for their strength, couldn't resist a knock from his brick. The veterans from his troop were strong, but they weren't much stronger than these dark apparitions. Hence, he could imagine their ending if Wang Teng had used his brick. They wouldn't be in life danger during the drill, but the atmosphere would definitely be messed up. A veteran getting smashed by a recruit would be a huge jock. With this thought in mind, he couldn't help but look at Yuan Xian. Kong Li was staring at him too, her expression extremely strange. Her little junior brother was a little fierce. Feeling the gazes from his comrades, the muscles on Yuan Xian's face twitched uncontrollably. He tried to maintain his composure, but he was already cursing in his heart. He had lingering fears. At this moment, he suddenly felt fortunate that he didn't have to go through this treatment. If not, he wouldn't have been able to stay in the troop anymore. He would find a hole and bury himself inside. He would have no face to see other people. Wang Teng kept the brick calmly as if nothing had happened. He wore an innocent expression, pretending that the human posts were unrelated to him. Everyone. Wang Teng ignored their gazes and scanned the area with his spiritual power. He picked up all the attribute bubbles. Dark Force *110 Spirit *60 Spirit *50 Enlightenment *15 Dark Force *125 Dark Force *65. This time, he was ruthless. 1 brick per giant apparition, killing them forcefully. Thus, he received many spirit attributes. However, there weren't many enlightenment attributes. It looked like the giant apparitions weren't very smart. What a waste of their big head. However, he had to admit that their big heads made it easier for him to hit them. Big head, no worries when it rains. Others have umbrellas, but I have a big head. Look, didn't this comparison give you a visualization of the size of their heads? Enlightenment, 301 1000, Emperor Realm, Spirit, 368 1000, Emperor Realm. At the same time, their Dark Force bubbles contributed a few hundred points of Dark Force. Suddenly, Wang Ting's body trembled. His Dark Force had advanced to another stage. Dark Force, 325,000, 7-star, he accidentally raised his Dark Force up another level. Now, he was considered a master among the dark apparitions. Wait, he wasn't a dark apparition. As Wang Ting was happily picking up the attributes, his gaze suddenly paused. Intermediate stage strength talent *20. There was a talent attribute. What a surprise! As the attribute merged into his body, he understood the uses of this intermediate stage strength talent. In summary, it was a physical talent. The stronger his talent, the stronger his physical body. His strength would also increase continuously. It was different from physique scriptures. Talent was innate, scripture was hard work. All in all, the higher your talent, the easier it would be for you to practice a physique scripture. At the same time, your strength would increase many times. For instance, if a martial warrior with beginner stage strength talent had 1 point of strength, then an intermediate stage strength talent martial warrior's starting strength would be double, starting with 2. If they practiced the same physique scripture, using the same effort and time, a normal martial warrior would grow by 1 point while an intermediate stage talent martial warrior would increase by 2 points. The difference might be small at the start, but as time went by, the gap would grow larger and larger. Intermediate stage strength talent, 2500. Not bad. Looking at the changes in the talent row on his attributes panel, Wang Ting nodded silently. Speaking of it, he had received a berserk battle technique from a giant apparition in the past too. It was an explosive battle technique, but Wang Ting never had the chance to use it. It wasn't his fault, though. His opponents were all too weak. The process of picking up attributes seemed long, but it only lasted for a few seconds. At this moment, the military martial warriors who got saved by them came forward and thanked them. The leader of this team was a second lieutenant. He came forward and bowed. Lieutenant Colonel Nyo, Major Yuan, Major Kong, if you hadn't passed by, would have been in danger. We're all comrades. There's no need to thank us, Nyo Li replied. The team was familiar with Kong Li and the two majors. They exchanged a few words and then shifted their gazes to Wang Ting. Wang Ting was the only unfamiliar person in this group. Moreover, he looked very young. However, they had personally witnessed his strength. This fellow might be young, but he was extremely powerful. Hence, the second lieutenant asked politely, "This is?" A hint of slyness flashed past Kong Li's eyes. She waved his hand and said, "Don't care about him. He's just a corporal in charge of miscellaneous stuff. You saw it just now. He runs real fast." Wang Ting. He thought that this senior sister was a good person, someone he could converse with. From the looks of it now, he was too naive. This lady was evil. She defamed him in front of so many people, calling him a corporal in charge of miscellaneous stuff. Mind you, he was their life savior. If he hadn't arrived in time, many more people would have been dead. Wang Ting had already thought of his image in his head. A brave and righteous uprising star of the military. But it was gone now. Woman, you're dead. You've ruined my image. This is a huge grudge. Corporal. The second lieutenant widened his eyes in surprise and stared at Wang Ting in disbelief. A corporal was so powerful. He had only left the military city for 3 days, but such a huge change had occurred. Even corporal positions were held by such powerful people. For an instant, the second lieutenant doubted himself. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to catch up with the times. What if he went back and his superior informed him that he would retire with honor? What should he do? Don't listen to her. This fellow might be a corporal, but He's very powerful. He's a special case. Niu Li shook his head helplessly and said. The second lieutenant heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't have to retire with honor. Indeed, if all the young people were so powerful now, the dark apparitions wouldn't have anything to do. They could go back and farm. The second lieutenant shook his head to clear the unwanted thoughts in his mind. Corporal Wang Ting, thank you for your help. Then, he took a step back abruptly and shouted with a stern face, salute. The soldiers around him straightened their backs and saluted at Wang Ting. You're welcome. Wang Ting was stunned. He hurriedly returned their salute and smiled. If you don't mention corporal, I'll be happier. The second lieutenant and the soldiers around him froze for a second. Then, they burst out laughing. They exchanged a few sentences before the second lieutenant left with his team. Niu Li told the second lieutenant to go the path they came. He said they had cleared that path, so it was safe for now. Then, they continued on their journey and mission. Chapter 412. Have the dark apparitions gone out for shopping? Level 1 and 2 restricted zones would be regularly cleared by humans, but the Level 3 and 4 zones were different. Level 3 and 4 restricted zones were the dark apparitions' territory. Dark apparition garrisons had already appeared further into the Level 3 restricted zone. Their target was the number 56 garrison in the Level 3 restricted zone. Along the way, the atmosphere was a little oppressive. Are you angry? Kong Li glanced at Wang Ting and teased him. Go away. I'm not close with you. Wang Ting turned his head. Aya, as a man, you mustn't be so narrow-minded. Kong Li inched over shamelessly. Ha ha. Wang Ting scoffed. 3/4 dishes meal, Kong Li suggested. Do you think I look like someone that can be bought over with food? Wang Ting wasn't moved. 4 meals. Kong Li added. 6 meals, 1 from a force chef master. Kong Li gritted her teeth. This was a fortune. Deal. A smile immediately appeared on his face. As expected of my senior, you're so generous. You're brutal. Kong Li was speechless. Small case, Wang Ting smiled and replied. Childish. Yuan Xian snorted. Hey, Major Yuan, aren't you interested in force dishes? Wang Ting teased him. Not at all, Yuan Xian replied coldly with a stern face before ignoring the two. Wang Ting started discussing excitedly with Kong Li and planned the 6 meals properly. Yuan Xian frowned. He wasn't used to their interaction. This was a serious and dangerous mission, but they turned it into a delicious food forum. How irritating. Niu Li smiled, but he didn't say anything. He didn't care about the process as long as it didn't affect the mission. At around 2 p.m., the 4 of them successfully arrived near the number 56 garrison of the dark apparitions. They hid in a small hill and looked at the garrison in the distance. The dark apparitions' garrison was entirely different from the human garrisons. Their garrisons were crude, made of large rocks, and were pitch black. In the dark, it would be hard to notice them. The architecture was special too. Wang Ting didn't know how to describe it. It was rough, evil-looking, and exaggerated. This was the first time he saw a Darkland-style building. He was curious, so he sized it up uncontrollably. Suddenly, he realized, to his surprise, that aside from the low-level dark apparitions wandering around the garrison, there weren't any signs of high-level dark apparitions. He couldn't help but look at Niu Li. He asked through a voice transmission, "Have the dark apparition gone out for shopping?" Niu Li stared at Wang Ting, and a vein popped out on his forehead. What kind of strange thoughts does this guy have in his mind? Go out shopping? Can you read the atmosphere and stop acting like an idiot when you should be serious? He took a deep breath before replying to him through voice transmission. Dark apparitions like the dark. Even high-level dark apparitions with intelligence don't like to move around in the day. Wang Ting noticed that Niu Li said don't like and not they can't. No wonder these low-level dark apparitions were able to move freely in the day. He looked at the sky and said, "This area is covered by dark clouds and saturated with dark force. There's no difference between day and night, right? To them, the day is the day. The sun won't disappear, so they will still get irritated by it. Do you know the reason? It's probably because the sun has changed too." Nioli pondered for some time before he opened his mouth. After all, according to various legends from different countries, the sun is an ultimate young object. "Are you telling me that the legends are true?" Wang Teng asked curiously. "I don't mean that. However, the legends originate from somewhere. Maybe our ancestors saw something," Nioli said in a meaningful tone. Wang Teng believed him. After all, this era couldn't be inferred using common sense. Humans possessed frightening power. In the eyes of the ancient people, they were no different from gods and devils. However, he still had some queries. "Is this a guess, or did you find related evidence? What do you think?" Nioli looked at him and smiled. Seeing his reaction, Wang Teng knew that he wouldn't be able to get an answer today. Were these people all the same? "Actually, I don't know much. I only heard a word or two." Nioli shook his head. Wang Teng didn't probe further. He activated his spiritual sight and scanned the garrison. As expected, he saw a few thick balls of dark force. Sav 3 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions. They didn't move immediately. Instead, they waited until night dawned. Through the dark clouds in the sky, they saw a moon hanging in the air, scattering its silver-white glow on the earth. The 4 soldiers ate the rations they bought and spoke to each other using voice transmission to pass the time. However, their attention was all on the number 56 garrison below. At approximately 10 p.m., they finally sensed some movements in the garrison. There were 3 figures in the distance. They conversed for some time before heading in different directions. Nioli frowned. He gave his order. "Follow one each. I'll stay here." "Yes," Wang Teng and the others replied immediately. "Wang Teng, will you be all right?" Nioli glanced at Wang Teng and asked again. "Don't worry. I won't die." Nioli nodded and didn't say anything else. The 3 soldiers chose a direction each and executed their hiding skills as they followed the dark apparitions. "Don't die." Kong Li's voice entered his ears. Wang Teng's gaze shimmered, but he didn't turn his head. He was already a distance away. He executed his wave invisibility skill and covered himself with dark force, disappearing into the cold wind under the night sky. If he only used dark force, he might get discovered by the dark apparition. However, with the addition of the wave invisibility skill, his concealing ability increased many folds. Wang Teng believed that he wouldn't be found out as long as he was more careful. He followed behind the dark apparition, keeping some distance between them. The other party was a dark apparition he had never seen before. It was tall and lofty, at least 3 meters in height. There was a pair of huge antlers on its head that twirled backward. This was a weird monster with a deer head and human body. Its limbs were muscular and thick, and it had a pair of wings on its back. It moved extremely fast. There was also a bone-like scorpion tail behind it. "It looks a little ugly," Wang Teng wondered to himself. After some time, he saw the dark apparition dashing into a forest below. Then, cries of agony from wild beasts were heard. Wang Teng hid afar and saw the deer-head human-body dark apparition catch a huge star beast. It furiously bit and tore the flesh off the beast. It was a terrifying scene. It came out to eat. Wang Teng shook his head speechlessly. He thought that it had some secrets, but this was it. Half an hour later, the dark apparition went back to the garrison. Wang Teng followed it and came back to the hill where Nioli was hiding. Kong Li and Yuan Xian were back too. They reported the situation on their side and discovered that the 3 dark apparitions seemed to have gone out for a meal. They didn't have any other actions. Chapter 413. A detailed and thorough plan. The 4 of them hid stupidly outside number 56 garrison for 3 days. These 3 days passed without any accidents. The 3 high-level 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions went out a few times, but it was all to eat. The lifestyles of these dark apparitions were extremely regular, so regular that it seemed scary. They either ate or slept every day. They were worse than a nerd who loved to stay at home. Wang Teng and the others started wondering if the high-level dark apparitions came to number 56 garrison because they wanted to have a holiday in a different environment. Besides the 3 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions, many 2-star to 5-star soldier-level dark apparitions came out to hunt for food too. The dark apparitions with deer head and human body, the vampire dark apparitions, and the giant apparitions were among them. There were around 200 in total. Nothing was amiss from their activity. They didn't even show any signs of wanting to attack the human garrisons. Wang Teng glanced at the 3 calm officers beside him. They were extremely patient. They had waited for so many days, but they weren't agitated or impatient at all. He could only say, as expected of veterans. Wang Teng couldn't help but complain in his heart. Their mission was to investigate the strange happenings in the garrison. However, they wouldn't be able to find anything if they just waited without doing anything. Finally, Wang Teng couldn't stand it anymore and asked using voice transmission, "Old Nyo, how long do we have to wait?" "You can't wait anymore." Nyo Li smiled and replied using voice transmission. "It has only been a few days, but you can't wait anymore." Yuan Xian glanced at him in contempt. "I can wait. I can wait as long as you want. It won't be a problem. I just feel that idling around like this is a complete waste of time." Wang Ting ignored him and shook his head. Nyo Li nodded. "The time is almost ready. The past few days were for us to observe the internal situation in the garrison. Now, we can make our move." "Move? What move?" Wang Ting asked. "Sneaking into number 56 garrison." Kong Li smiled and replied, "Do you think we can discover anything by waiting outside without doing anything? The highlight of the mission is here." Nyo Li turned serious. Kong Li and Yuan Xian dropped their casual attitudes. "You will each be in charge of investigating an area respectively. I'll wait for you outside," Nyo Li said. Then, he glanced at Wang Ting uncontrollably. Wang Ting's performance for the past few days had exceeded his expectation. He didn't act like a recruit at all. His skills were on par with Kong Li and Yuan Xian. Most importantly, this fellow was extremely powerful. He charged directly whenever he met any dangers, but no accidents happened along the way. When he followed the 7-star dark apparition out as it hunted, he didn't get discovered either. This was proof of his skill. Thus, he wasn't too worried about Wang Teng for this mission. During the past few days, the 4 of them had built some chemistry with one another, including Yuan Xian. He wouldn't target Wang Ting when it came to important matters. Hence, he didn't say anything. The 4 of them immediately started discussing the details of this undercover mission. Half an hour later, the 3 officers exchanged glances with one another and gradually disappeared on the spot. "This brat creates surprises all the time. I can't even detect any traces of his concealing skill." Nyo Li looked at the spot where Wang Teng was standing a second ago. He shook his head and sighed in his heart. It was night, so most dark apparitions should be asleep. There was some danger in sneaking into the garrison now, but it would also allow them to find anything amiss here. They couldn't wait until the dark apparitions left to sneak in because they weren't able to confirm that the dark apparitions went out only to hunt for food. They might be doing this to fool outsiders and cover up the truth. Who knew if they were heading out for their real purpose today? No one could be sure. Wang Teng evaded the low-level dark apparitions outside the garrison's perimeters and climbed over the wall to enter. Based on the plan they came up with, he went all the way to the back. The dark apparitions probably didn't expect someone to sneak into their camp, so there were no patrols. They were all sleeping soundly. "Are you seriously so careless?" Wang Teng stood in a corner and complained helplessly. He felt that there was something wrong with this mission. It was so smooth that he didn't know what to make of it. Wang Teng roamed for some time before he finally found the place where the dark apparitions were sleeping. It could barely be called a dormitory. This dormitory was a little scary. Somehow, it looked like a scene from a horror movie. It was shaped like a room in a palace and was completely empty. Fortunately, Wang Teng was experienced, so he raised his head and looked up. Good riddance, numerous heads were floating in mid-air in the dark. However, why were they all upside down? He looked at them carefully. There were rows and rows of vampire-like dark apparitions hanging upside down from the ceiling. Their eyes were close, and their faces were white. A timid person might be scared to death if he saw this scene in the middle of the night. These dark apparitions love to put on an act. Why can't they sleep properly? Why must they hang themselves up? Also, according to legends, shouldn't vampires sleep in coffins? Why aren't these vampire dark apparitions going by the book? Wang Teng shook his head and threw these random thoughts out of his mind. This wasn't the time to think about that. He had to see if there was anything suspicious about these dark apparitions. Here came the question, how should he investigate? Wang Teng hid in a dark corner and touched his chin. His gaze was ambiguous as he occasionally glanced at the vampire dark apparitions on the ceiling. A sinister smile gradually appeared at the edge of his lips. I have an idea, he. The next moment, he disappeared on the spot. Using his spiritual sight, he knew that these dark apparitions were all at the 4-star soldier level and below. There were only 5 4-star soldier level dark apparitions. Their difference in ability was huge. Hence, even if he went near them, he wouldn't be discovered. Based on this, he came up with a detailed and thorough plan. He would silently close in on one of the dark apparitions and cover its mouth. Then, he would knock it unconscious, bring it away, and question it. That was the gist of his plan. He would choose one of the 4-star soldier-level dark apparitions. After all, some things would only be known to those with stronger abilities. Wang Teng even wondered if those 4-star soldier-level dark apparitions knew any secrets. He couldn't care anymore. He decided to test it out. So, which one should he choose? Wang Teng scanned the vampires and started pointing at them. Finally, his finger stopped on a vampire dark apparition who was smaller than the others. All right, it's you. Wang Teng silently flew closer and arrived behind the dark apparition. He furrowed his brows and turned upside down. Then, he quickly covered his opponent's mouth. The vampire woke up with a start. It opened its eyes wide, with fear and confusion in them. It wanted to struggle and alert its companions, but the next second, Wang Teng knocked it unconscious. After a series of actions, the dark apparition was kidnapped by Wang Teng. None of the other vampires noticed anything. Even if they woke up and found it missing, they would only wonder if it had gone to the toilet. Chapter 414. Wow, you're quite fierce. Number 56 Garrison Warehouse. Wang Teng knocked the lichen dark apparition who was guarding the warehouse unconscious and closed the main door. Now, it was time for the highlight of his plan. Questioning. Wang Teng thought for a moment before using his spiritual power to form an imprisoning rune. He sealed off the dark apparition's force. Then, he arranged a small-sized soundproof rune array around them. Perfect. Only a divine spirit master and an advanced stage rune master could do this. Wang Teng felt a little proud. He shifted his gaze to the unconscious vampire dark apparition, and a sharp look appeared in his eyes. Sleep, 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 you're like a pig. The brick appeared in his hand, and he slapped it on the dark apparition's handsome and pale face without showing any mercy. Of course, he didn't aim at the face because he was jealous. After all, he was more handsome than this dark apparition who gave off a morbid beauty. Slash. Boom. After a round of beating, the vampire dark apparition woke up in confusion. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I getting treated so inhumanly? Oh right, kidnapping. Someone kidnapped me just now. Damn it, who is this impudent person? How dare he kidnap a noble vampire dark apparition right inside the garrison? This is unforgivable. However, it was being slapped right and left, so its head kept swaying back and forth at high speed. Its vision was a blur. It couldn't see the culprit's face at all. Slash. Boom. Wang Teng didn't notice that the dark apparition was awake. He hit him so smoothly that he continued slapping the dark apparition with the brick. The vampire dark apparition felt his tears flowing out. He wanted to activate his dark force, but he got a rude shock. The dark force in his body had disappeared. There was no reaction in his force nucleus. What's going on? Huh? You're awake. A voice finally entered his ears. It was the human language. The vampire dark apparition squinted. Damn it, he landed in the hands of a human. The vampire dark apparition's face was badly bruised and swollen. He could only open his eyes slightly. He tried his best to open his eyes wide, attempting to see the culprit's face through the small gap. His vision was still hazy, but he finally managed to see his enemy's face. This was a young human being. He actually landed in the hands of a youngster. The vampire dark apparition was infuriated. Ouch, so painful. The change in his expression was too violent, so it pulled at his muscles. He felt excruciating pain on his face. This made him even more furious. Human, you're dead. You're in deep trouble. You can speak the human language? This is perfect. Wang Ting sized up the dark apparition in front of him in astonishment. He was still wondering what he should do if they couldn't understand each other. Yet, this dark apparition could speak the human language. This was great, it saved him much trouble. But he should still learn the dark apparition language when he had the time. It wouldn't hurt to have too many skills. Did you hear what I said? You're dead. You're in deep trouble, the vampire dark apparition bellowed. Wow, you're quite fierce. Wang Ting raised his eyebrows and raised his brick. Another round of walloping. Can you talk properly now? Wang Ting asked. I'm a noble vampire. I'll never succumb to you even if you use such a brutal method, the vampire replied stubbornly. Boom. Human, I want to kill you. I want to suck your blood, the vampire dark apparition roared. Boom. You're dead, you're dead. Boom. You're really dead. It's rare to see such a strong-willed dark apparition like you. You have my respect, Wang Ting praised him. Then, boom. Stop hitting me. Wang Ting. His face turned black. I just complimented you, but you slapped my face. Where's my pride and dignity? Boom. The vampire dark apparition felt puzzled. He had already surrendered. Why was he still getting beaten? Boom. After many rounds of beating, the dark apparition's face grew bigger. Wang Ting was afraid of wasting more time, so he stopped. If not, he would have continued beating him. Can you talk properly now? The vampire dark apparition felt the pain on his face and nodded fervently. Good. Now, I'll ask, and you'll answer. If I don't ask anything, you're not allowed to speak. Do you understand? Wang Ting said calmly. The vampire dark apparition hesitated for a moment. If this human questioned him about some secrets, should he give in, or give in, or give in? Why? You don't agree with what I've said? Wang Ting raised his brick again. Don't. I'll reply to you properly. The vampire was no longer as proud as before. He became a coward. There are 3 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions here. What's their purpose? Wang Ting went straight to the point. The vampire's expression changed. Then, his face started hurting. I suggest that you think thrice before you speak. I'm an easy person to talk to, but this fellow isn't that kind. Wang Ting played with the brick in his hand as he sniggered. The vampire. This devil. Sigh, he didn't want to be a rat, but this young man was ruthless. I think they came to see someone. You think? Wang Ting raised his voice. No, I'm sure of it, the vampire immediately replied. See who? Wang Ting nodded and continued asking. I'm not sure. Besides the 3 of them, no one knows the answer, the vampire replied. Wang Ting frowned. The vampire felt his heart pounding furiously. Was he planning to beat him? He immediately shouted, I really don't know. All right, look how frightened you are. I've already told you that I'm an easy person to speak to. Wang Ting glared at him. The vampire shrunk his neck. Do you think he'll believe you? If you're easy to speak to, my face wouldn't be swollen. Now, we have come to the quick response segment. If you hesitate even a little, I'll reward you with the brick, Wang Ting said. The vampire immediately understood Wang Ting's intention. He couldn't lie if he had to reply instantly. However, he didn't dare not reply. He could only nod his head. Very good. The segment will start now. How many days have they stayed here? 5. Did the person they are supposed to meet come during these 5 days? No. When will the person come? I don't know. What's their future plan? I don't know. Do you want to live or die? I don't know. You don't know anything. It looks like there's no reason to keep you alive. Wang Tung scoffed. The vampire's expression froze. What did he say just now? Wait. I want to live. Live. His desire to live was extremely strong. He stared at Wang Ting pitifully. Oh right, I still have some questions for you, Wang Ting said. Go ahead. You can ask me anything, the vampire replied. Your race has a talent called bewitch, right? A mysterious smile appeared on Wang Teng's face as he leaned forward and whispered to the vampire. How do you know? The vampire was flabbergasted. Ouch, his face hurt. You don't have to know. Now, let me ask you, do you have that ability? Wang Teng mocked. I don't. This ability is only born to those vampires with high talent. I'm not one of them, the vampire said dejectedly. One last question. Do you have ways to resist this skill? Wang Teng asked. There's no special method. You can only resist if your spiritual power is higher than the person who uses this skill, the vampire said. Is it? I can feel at ease then. Wang Ting nodded his head. The vampire looked at Wang Ting in confusion. What was he saying? Why was he speaking so strangely? Then he suddenly realized that the young man's gaze was starting to turn weird. This is. The vampire's pupils constricted. He was filled with disbelief. A possibility flashed in his mind. No, this is impossible. He wanted to turn his head away, but his thoughts had slowed down. He couldn't think properly, and he couldn't move his body. What's going on? This was the last thought in his mind before his vision turned black. After some time, Wang Teng got the answer he wanted using his bewitch skill. It was no different from what the vampire said a while ago. What an honest vampire. His brick method was a success. As expected, this brick could solve any problems he had. Wang Teng nodded. Then, he tapped his finger on the dark apparition's swollen head and invaded its mind with his spiritual power, destroying his consciousness. The vampire died. A few attribute bubbles floated out from his body. Dark Force *35 Dark Language *1 Handsomeness *60 Spirit *70 Wang Teng raised his eyebrows. Handsomeness. Handsomeness again. Are vampires honestly so handsome? Why do they always drop the handsomeness attribute? Or is it because he smashed his face with his brick? Hitting the face would allow him to drop attributes related to the face. It made sense. However, the number seemed a little high. Was he too brutal? Amen. Chapter 4:15. Don't blame me. You all forced me. Actually, Wang Teng felt that his appearance was handsome enough. If he continued to become more handsome, the other guys wouldn't have a chance. Wait, something strange seemed to have sneaked in. Dark language. As the bubble merged into his body, a memory appeared in his mind out of nowhere. This is a language bubble. Just a moment ago, he wanted to learn the dark language, and here it was now. When was the system ever so considerate? Wang Teng couldn't believe it. However, it was understandable that this dark apparition would drop a language talent. After all, he was able to grasp the human language. This was a good thing. It would be awkward if he eavesdropped on a secret conversation between dark apparitions, but he didn't know what they were saying. Wang Teng kept the corpse of the dark apparition in his space ring. Then, he sized up the warehouse. There's something here. There was a pile of green-color ores in the corner of the room. These are celestites. Wang Teng touched his chin. As an advanced stage blacksmith, he immediately recognized the ores. Celestite was a wind element ore, best used for forging wind element weapons. They were widely sought after by wind element martial warriors. Wind element was a mutated element, and hence, the relevant ores were hard to find. Naturally, They possessed a high value. Judging by the size of this pile of ores, it was worth at least 5 billion. Oh my, 5 billion. Hearts were shooting out of Wang Teng's eyes. This was a surprise. Old Nyo told me not to alert the dark apparitions, but he didn't say that I can't steal things. Wang Teng sniggered. Also, the dark apparitions probably won't notice the disappearance of the ores for some time even if I steal them. By the time they find out about it, they will think that it was a thief. This is what I call diverting their attention and killing two birds with one stone. Amazing. Wang Teng kept the celestites in his space ring and prepared to leave. Along the way, he saw the lichen dark apparition on the ground. He pointed his finger at it, claiming its life. He threw the corpse into his space ring so that it could accompany the vampire dark apparition. He would take care of the bodies after he left. Wang Teng left the warehouse and started searching the area he was in charge of. Around 10 minutes later, he stopped moving, becoming extremely vigilant. Using his spiritual sight, he saw an area covered with the thickest dark force. This was the room of one of the 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions. Wang Ting looked inside the room and was stunned. A coffin. The dark apparition seriously slept in a coffin. Wang Ting's expression turned strange. The 3 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions consisted of one with a deer head and human body, one giant apparition, and one vampire. He scanned the room. Besides the coffin, there was nothing strange. He shook his head and left carefully. Wang Ting finished investigating the area under him. He then met up with Kong Li and Yuan Xian at the agreed location. 3 sneaking figures gathered in a corner. Did you find any clues? Wang Ting asked through voice transmission. Kong Li and Yuan Xian shook their heads helplessly. Wang Ting was dumbfounded. He wanted to verify his findings with them, but they didn't discover anything. What's with your expression? Kong Li raised her eyebrows. She seemed to have seen a hint of disdain in Wang Ting's expression. Yuan Xian didn't look good either. He was a major. Where would he place his dignity if he got looked down on by a recruit? Cough, let's talk about the mission. Wang Ting coughed and changed the topic. Did you find something? Kong Li asked, her eyes lighting up. Yuan Xian looked at him too. There was disbelief on his face. Did this fellow really find a clue? I did find something, Wang Teng replied humbly. Say it quickly. Kong Li rolled her eyes at him. This wasn't the time to be humble. Wang Teng chuckled. He didn't hide his information and immediately told them what he got from the vampire. The 3 dark apparitions are here to meet someone. Who is it? Why do they need to put in so much effort? Kong Li frowned. Is your information reliable? Yuan Xian questioned. I can't say 100%, but it's 80% reliable, Wang Teng replied confidently. If he didn't have any hidden secrets, he would have said 100%. 80%? Are you sure? The 2 majors were startled. This was a high percentage. It was high enough for the military to invest manpower and resources in delving further in this direction. How did you get hold of this news? Yuan Xian asked again. Wang Ting noticed that they still doubted him, so he took out the corpse of the dark apparition and summarized his investigation process. The majors. The muscles on Yuan Xian's face kept throbbing. He looked at the indistinguishable face of the vampire dark apparition and the head that had swelled to 2 times the normal size. He couldn't imagine what this dark apparition suffered before its death. This fellow is a devil. Kong Li looked at the vampire's appearance and then at Wang Teng, her gaze going back and forth between the 2. Her expression could only be described with one word: strange. She silently swore that she would never provoke Wang Ting in the future. However, they started to understand why Wang Ting was 80% confident. No matter how hard your bone was, you would surrender after getting beaten like this. If it was them, they would be confident too. They took a deep breath. Kong Li nodded and said, "Your information is very useful. We have 2 choices. We can retreat, or we can stay behind and wait for the secret person to come." The 3 of them went silent. To a military martial warrior, the mission was everything. They were willing to take enormous risks for the sake of the mission. "I'll stay behind." You guys can go back and report this to Lieutenant Colonel Niu, Yuan Shen said. Let me stay behind. My concealing method is better than yours, and it's safer too. Kong Li hesitated, but she still stepped up. Your concealing method is similar to mine. It's nowhere more powerful. If I can be discovered, you won't be any different. Let me stay. If something goes wrong, I have 30% confidence that I can escape, Yuan Shen said. Bullshit, how can I be worse than you? I have 35% confidence that I can escape. Kong Li's anger got ignited. She was unwilling to back down. Wang Ting rubbed his forehead as he listened to them quarreling using voice transmission. He said, Majors, why aren't you asking me? You're a recruit. Don't interrupt us. The two of them rejected his proposal without turning their heads. I have 100% confidence that I can escape. Also, I don't want to hurt your pride, but my concealing method is much better than yours. The dark apparitions might never notice me, Wang Ting said in frustration. The two majors turned quiet instantly. Then, they turned in unplanned unison and looked at Wang Ting. You're 100% confident that you can escape. Kong Li stared at Wang Ting curiously. That's why people like you will never understand what a true genius is. Wang Ting shook his head helplessly, acting like a lonely indomitable warrior. Speak properly. Kong Li glared at him. You won't believe me even if I say it. Are you sure the dark apparitions won't notice you with your concealing skill? Yuan Shen asked. Of course. Wang Ting replied calmly. For some reason, I think that you're acting. Kong Li glanced at him before turning her head and asking Yuan Shen, Yuan, what do you think? I agree. Yuan Shen replied expressionlessly. Wang Ting. Don't blame me. You all forced me. Chapter 416. Are all the female dark apparitions so pretty? After a series of hesitation, wavering, and indecisiveness, Kong Li and Yuan Shen left. The mission was of utmost importance to a soldier. Wang Ting had more confidence in completing this mission as compared to them. Hence, they had no reason to stop him. Wang Ting heaved a sigh of relief when he saw them leaving. Although Kong Li and Yuan Shen were powerful, their abilities offered no help in this mission. If they stayed back, they might create more trouble for him instead. Now that they had finally left the garrison after much persuasion, he could do whatever he wanted. He was being truthful when he said that he was confident in completing this mission. Not long ago, a thought had flashed through his mind, and he came up with another detailed and thorough plan. An evil smile peeked at the edge of his lips. The next second, the muscles in his body started wiggling. His entire body was changing. Finally, he took on the appearance of the vampire dark apparition who got beaten up by him. Of course, it was his appearance before his face became swollen. Wang Ting used his ice force to form a mirror and checked his appearance. A satisfied smile appeared on his face uncontrollably. The morph skill didn't disappoint him. Whether it was the height, the physique, or the face, he was 99,999,999,999% similar to the vampire dark apparition. Wait, something felt amiss. Wang Ting frowned uncontrollably. He took out the corpse of the vampire for comparison and slapped his forehead in enlightenment. The wings. The vampires had bat wings. He didn't morph those wings out. He triggered the skill in his mind, and the muscles on his back started squirming. They extended out and finally turned into a pair of bat wings. He flapped them softly. They felt like real wings. Fortunately, the morph skill was impressive enough, so he was able to create the pair of wings. The dark apparitions came in weird shapes and forms. Morphing into them was so tricky and exasperating. Wang Ting complained in his heart. Then, his gaze landed on his clothes. All he needed was a set of dark apparition clothing. Sometime later, Wang Ting walked out of a corner. He had already changed into the vampire's clothing. Fortunately, the scene wasn't bloody when he killed the vampire, so his clothes remained clean. If they were dirted, he might have had to wash them before wearing them. Wang Ting strutted his way into the vampire's dormitory. The best concealment was to hide among his enemies. If he didn't say it himself, Who could tell that he was a human? Wang Ting didn't continue investigating. Instead, he went back to the dormitory and rested there like the other vampires. But when he saw the situation inside, he was in a dilemma. The vampires were all sleeping upside down. What if he got cephalemia? Once again, Wang Ting felt that there was a small flaw in his detailed and thorough plan. Never mind. A human would always be careless in one way or another. This minor flaw was negligible. Wang Ting gritted his teeth and merged with the darkness. Then, without anyone noticing, he appeared on the ceiling. He hung upside down and closed his eyes. He was a big emotionless bat now. However, he didn't sleep. He opened his eyes occasionally and used his spiritual sight to observe the movements of the 3 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions. He would stay here obediently if no suspicious force movements appeared around them. Time passed slowly. Soon, it was night. Once night arrived, it was time for the dark apparitions to go out to hunt for food. Wang Ting didn't notice anything amiss in this period. The 3 dark apparitions returned to number 56 garrison after hunting outside. Wang Ting didn't follow them. He believed that the 3 veterans wouldn't stay put and do nothing. After they came back, it was the weaker dark apparitions' turn to hunt. In the room, the vampire dark apparitions woke up one by one, their crimson eyes flickering. Their gaze was bloodthirsty. They spread their wings and flew out in masses like a flock of bats. Wang Ting hid among the bats, the vampires, and waved his ornamental wings. He was using the ability of a 7-star soldier-level martial warrior to sail through the sky. The other vampires didn't sense anything amiss. At this moment, a voice rang beside his ear. "Rupert, you seem abnormal today." Wang Ting's heart skipped a beat. Rupert was the name of the vampire he was disguised as. While questioning the vampire, he had already thought of a rough plan, so he used his bewitch skill to lure some personal information from the vampire's mouth. Hence, when he heard someone calling him, he was flustered. Was he discovered? Was there a flaw in his plan again? This didn't make sense. He hid so well. How did the vampire notice him? There was no need to be anxious. If everything failed, he would kill all the dark apparitions. Many thoughts flashed past Wang Ting's mind. He turned and looked in the direction where the voice came from. Oh my God, it's huge. The first thing that entered his vision was something that could not be explicitly mentioned. Cough. This wasn't the time to observe something unrelated. Wang Ting's gaze landed on the face. Her hair was brown, complemented with a pair of green eyes. She was gorgeous, a peculiar seductive vibe hanging around her. Are all the female dark apparitions so pretty? This thought popped into Wang Ting's mind abruptly. His brain churned, and the images of Rupert's acquaintances entered his mind. The information of the female dark apparition was among them. The face was the same. Phyllis, a female dark apparition that Rupert had been chasing for a long time. Phyllis was probably a little interested in Rupert too, but she hated some of his traits. As a result, they didn't move further in their relationship. No wonder the other party came to talk to him. Wang Ting felt relieved. It looked like the female dark apparition didn't see through his disguise. She just felt that her Rupert was a little abnormal. Normally, once Rupert woke up, he would pester Phyllis continuously. He was a chatterbox. This was the part of him Phyllis didn't like. Unfortunately, Rupert didn't know about it. As an outsider, Wang Ting naturally didn't know either. He just felt his head hurt. He got entangled in a bloody love relationship between 2 dark apparitions. What was he supposed to do? This is very urgent. I need an answer immediately. Wang Ting couldn't find a way out. He could only look at Phyllis in confusion without replying to her. Phyllis frowned. She said with a hint of frost in her voice, "A chatterbox like you can be quiet too? Are you constipated?" Wang Ting couldn't help but pay a silent tribute to Rupert. He had chased this sharp-tongued female dark apparition for 7 years, unwilling to give up. It must be difficult for him. He probably wasn't popular among the ladies. If not, why did he have to hang on to a single tree? What a poor fellow. After a few seconds, he finished his silent tribute. An idea popped into his mind, and he replied to Phyllis hurriedly, "I had a dream this morning." Phyllis furrowed her brows harder. This fellow was always so ridiculous. She was furious at his cowardice. "As for what dream it is, you don't have to know." Wang Ting didn't continue the story. He kept a straight face, revealing no loopholes in his acting. He added with an indifferent expression, "You just have to know that from today onwards, I'm no longer the Rupert you know. I've decided to change, so you might never see the fellow who has always been pestering you." Phyllis. Chapter 417. Actually, he really wanted to slap him to death just now. Wang Ting didn't plan to interfere in the complicated love relationship of these two dark apparitions. This female dark apparition was beautiful and her figure was terrific, but he was a person with integrity. A female dark apparition? Even their race was different. There was no way they could make love, no, there was no possibility of anything happening. Hence, he planned to use this method to distance himself from this female dark apparition. "In the past, you gave me the cold shoulder. Today, I'll make sure I'm above your station." Indeed, this was Wang Ting's perfect plan, also he thought. "You don't like Rupert, right? In that case, I'll represent Rupert and ignore you. From today onwards, stay away from me. I'm not serving you anymore." Wang Ting could already predict the future progress of this relationship. He laughed silently in his heart. If he could, he wanted to give a thumbs up for his wit and craftiness. However, Phyllis' eyes lit up. "Really?" Wang Ting was dumbfounded. The other party's reaction was a little different from what he had expected. Based on this female dark apparition's temper, shouldn't she turn and leave? "Why do I see some happiness on her face?" "Phyllis." Wang Ting accentuated his tone and tried his best to maintain his indifference. His voice was icy. "I, Rupert, have my pride. I don't want to talk about the past. From today onwards, I'll not pester you for no reason. Can you please? It's great that you're thinking this way." Phyllis was elated. "Wang Ting. Why? What went wrong?" Her expression wasn't right. Suddenly, he had a bad feeling. Cultivate properly in the future and complete the missions given by the sirs. Try to perform in front of them and work hard to climb the ladder. Phyllis was excited. "We came from ordinary backgrounds, so this is our only way up." Wang Ting. After a few seconds, Wang Ting looked at Phyllis in wonder, who was following him instead of leaving him. Suddenly, he wanted to find a corner and squat there so that he could go over the situation again. Was his method wrong? Or were his thoughts wrong? An admirer who was a simp suddenly became cold and distant. Shouldn't she be furious and leave? Yet, this female dark apparition didn't. Instead, she became closer to him. What kind of twist was this? Did dark apparitions like this attitude? Wang Ting didn't understand. However, he didn't want to reveal any loopholes, so he adhered to his words and put on a stern face. He ignored Phyllis. The other party didn't seem to mind. In fact, she was quite delighted and followed him like tissue paper stuck on a shoe. After some time, they arrived at a forest. They split up and started hunting for food. "Why are you following me?" Wang Ting stopped. He turned to look at the female dark apparition who didn't want to leave him. "I want to hunt with you," Phyllis replied. "No, I want to be alone." Wang Ting rejected her harshly. "All right, I understand. You just decided to change, so you need some alone time to get used to it. I mustn't stay too close. Otherwise, you might go back to your usual self." No one knew what Phyllis was thinking. She nodded and turned to leave. "Wang Ting. You're right, you're always right. Just don't get too close to me." Wang Ting felt helpless. If she continued like this, he felt that he was going to get pushed by her. Must he sacrifice his body for a mission? No way. If the female dark apparition did anything overboard, he would slap her to death. Naturally, Wang Ting didn't hunt for food. He put on a show and met up with the other dark apparitions at the end. They went back to number 56 garrison together. These dark apparitions slept in the day and were lively at night. They were having a whale of a time. The lichens, the giant apparitions, the vampires, This was like a party for the devils and monsters. Wang Ting sat in a corner and hid in the dark. A strong urge to kill boiled in his heart as he looked at the scene in the lobby. These dark apparitions invaded the human world and massacred his kind mercilessly. They wreaked havoc without fear and had caused many tragedies. Yet, here they were, partying without any guilt. Indeed, they deserved to die. Rupert, why are you here alone? Phyllis walked over from afar. Phyllis, why care about this fellow? He's useless. He's not suitable for you. Another tall and handsome vampire dark apparition followed her. His gaze was filled with contempt as he looked at Wang Ting. Quirk, I've already said that this is none of your business. Stop following me. You're irritating. Phyllis replied angrily. They arrived in front of Wang Ting as they bickered with each other. Wang Ting remained calm, though. He didn't expose any of the killing intent in his heart. He just looked at the two dark apparitions indifferently. Quirk's face had already turned black from Phyllis' words. Thus, when he saw Wang Ting's expression, he felt that he was belittling him. He shouted in anger, "Shift your eyes away and apologize. If not, I'll break your back immediately." Quirk, what do you want to do? Phyllis' expression changed slightly. She glared at the male dark apparition. Try it. Wang Ting frowned and stared coldly at the other party. He had a mission, so he didn't want to create trouble. However, that didn't mean that he was afraid of trouble. Very good. I wonder who gave you the courage to talk back to me. I'll give you two choices now. Kneel and beg, or accept my challenge. Quirk squinted. Malicious intent poured out from his eyes as he spoke in a cold-blooded manner. This fellow never dared to refute him in the past. What happened to him today? Why did he go crazy and turn manly all of a sudden? If he didn't teach him a lesson, everyone might forget who the notorious Quirk was. Phyllis' expression changed again. She quickly stood in front of Wang Ting and said, "Don't forget what the three sirs said. If you dare create trouble, they will not forgive you." Quirk's pupils constricted, and he seemed to have remembered something frightening. He snorted at Wang Ting and said, "You're lucky. Once the three sirs leave, I'll let you have a taste of my power." He glared at Wang Ting and turned to leave. Wang Ting remained expressionless as he watched Quirk's back. Phyllis noticed his silence. She thought he was worried that Quirk would trouble him in the future, so she comforted him in a soft tone, "Don't worry. If we fight him together, we might not lose. He won't dare to go overboard." Wang Ting gave her a strange look. What did Phyllis like about Rupert? That fellow couldn't be compared with that Quirk guy, but Phyllis was still thinking about him. Strange thoughts went through his mind, but on the surface, he kept a serious expression and said, "I'm fine." Phyllis looked at Wang Ting's face. Suddenly, she realized that there was no fear in it. His gaze was extremely calm too. He seemed to have turned into a different entity altogether. She started feeling doubtful. When did this fellow change so much? However, he was better than before. Wang Ting didn't have the time to care about this lovesick female dark apparition. He looked at Quirk in the lobby. Actually, he really wanted to slap him to death just now. 1. Chapter 4:18. The Academy owed him an Oscar. Sigh. Wang Ting sighed loudly after he walked out of the lobby. He couldn't stand the bunch of demons inside anymore. They were like maniacs. And he was the only normal person in this mental hospital. That was why he had to leave them. If he stayed too close with that bunch of madmen, any sane person would go crazy. Looking up at the moon peeking out from behind the clouds, he got emotional. He had disguised himself as a dark apparition and infiltrated into their camp. He was probably the only person who dared to think of this plan and do it. Moreover, he might be the only person who had the ability to do it. After all, there was only one bug in the world, him. He felt that everything seemed like a fantasy. If his identity was exposed, he imagined that the hundreds of dark apparitions would turn and stare at him simultaneously. That scene would be a little awkward. The next moment, he shook his head hurriedly. No, he mustn't be exposed. Why did you come out? Phyllis' voice appeared behind him. Wang Teng couldn't help but frown. This female dark apparition was so irritating. She followed him everywhere like a plaster, yet Wang Teng couldn't slap her to death. He could only keep a stern face and reply calmly, "They're too irritating. I want to have some peace. You've changed so much. In the past, you loved to mingle with them, but you're voluntarily keeping your distance now. I'm really curious about your dream that caused such a change," Phyllis said. Wang Teng was startled. He hoped that she didn't notice anything wrong. No matter how much a person changed, there was a limit and a reason. Fortunately, he used a dream as his excuse, and the other party believed him. She thought in that direction, so she didn't sense anything amiss. However, in front of Phyllis' question, Wang Teng felt that he needed to work out the plot of his dream properly. Indeed, one had to use multiple lies to cover up one lie. Headache. Wang Teng sighed. He racked his brain and came up with a storyline quickly. He replied in a composed manner, "Phyllis, have you ever experienced the fear of being controlled by death? Do you understand the pain of getting betrayed by your closest friend? Do you know the despair when your friend leaves you to die?" Phyllis stared at Wang Teng absent-mindedly. She seemed alarmed by his series of questions. Wang Teng was pleased when he saw her expression. However, he pretended to shake his head as if he was mocking himself. "I knew that you wouldn't understand. Rupert, don't act like this. It's just a dream." Phyllis looked at Wang Teng worriedly. He seemed a little possessed. It was just a dream, but it seemed so real. "Also, that dream was more terrifying than you could imagine," Wang Teng replied. "Even so, I won't betray you. I understand that you don't trust others, but have you stopped trusting me too?" Phyllis said with heartache. Wang Teng looked at her indifferently without saying anything. Phyllis trembled. His calm gaze was without any shred of emotion. She took a few steps back unconsciously. She couldn't understand why the Rupert who loved her dearly in the past had become so cold and detached suddenly. Phyllis didn't continue the conversation. She left dejectedly. Damn it, she finally left. Wang Ting heaved a sigh of relief. He nodded to himself when he recalled Phyllis' reaction and the tears hovering at the ends of her eyes before she left. His acting was splendid. The Academy owed him an Oscar. Wang Ting rubbed the stiff muscles on his face. It was hard to deal with a female dark apparition. He was now praying that the mysterious person would appear soon. Once he got the information he wanted, he would leave instantly. Wang Ting instinctively used his spiritual sight to scan the locations where the 3 7-star soldier-level dark apparitions were at. His pupils constricted. In his vision, the 3 brightest balls of dark force were heading in the same direction. But that wasn't the main point. The main point was, another bright ball of force had appeared at the spot where they were about to meet. That ball of light wasn't black. It was green. Wood force. There was another human martial warrior in this garrison. From the brightness of the glow, that person was at least at the 9-star soldier level. Very suspicious. Wang Teng frowned. He dashed towards that direction without any hesitation. During his discussion with the majors, they had guessed that the person the 3 dark apparitions were meeting might be a human. After all, the presence of traitors was revealed a long time ago. There were always people who couldn't resist the temptations given by the devils and fell into their embrace voluntarily. However, when he saw it personally, he still couldn't understand. What was going through the minds of these traitors? Why did they have to be weasels when they could be humans? Wang Teng moved quickly. He evaded the dark apparitions around him and arrived only a second after the 3 dark apparitions. He stopped outside a room. "You've arrived. Haha. We have been waiting for you for many days." The dark apparition with a deer head and human body let out a peal of evil laughter. "It can't be helped. I couldn't get away. I rushed here when I was still on my mission." Their conversation floated out of the room faintly. They didn't expect someone to eavesdrop on them, so they didn't use voice transmission. Actually, most martial warriors wouldn't use voice transmission to talk to one another if they had the choice. It was too troublesome. The mysterious person's voice was hoarse. It might be a fake voice. It looked like this person was cautious, even though he didn't use voice transmission. Wang Ting inched forward carefully. He merged into the darkness, hiding his aura and force waves. There were concealing runes on his body, too, formed using his spiritual power. With his current level of spiritual power, even the 9-star soldier-level martial warrior wouldn't be able to discover him. He peeked into the room through a crack in the window. Unfortunately, I can't see through objects with my spiritual sight. If not, I won't have to go through all these troubles, Wang Ting complained in his heart. The mysterious man had covered himself entirely with a black cloak. Wang Ting couldn't see his figure. The man was facing sideways, so he couldn't see the face under the cape of the black cloak either. Turn around. Turn around. Come on, turn around. Wang Ting screamed in his heart. Unfortunately, the person didn't listen to him. He couldn't see the face no matter how hard he tried. Wang Ting was exasperated. He had no choice but to focus his attention on their conversation. Time is tight. Let's get down to business. 9 days later, my race is going to launch a surprise attack on the Star Maple Troop. Prepare to welcome us. Attacking the Star Maple Troop. The mysterious person was obviously shocked. Why the sudden move? Haha, that's not something you have to know. The dark apparition sneered. All right. When I decided to join your side, I knew that this day would come sooner or later. I just didn't expect it to be so fast. The person regained his composure and shrugged. Chapter 419. The Touch of Darkness. It's good that you are mentally prepared. The dark apparition laughed menacingly. Don't worry. The higher-ups won't forget your contribution. Once this mission ends successfully, you will follow us back. The Sirs will help you break through your soldier level. As the discussion between the 3 dark apparitions and the mysterious person landed in Wang Teng's ear, his expression gradually turned grave. These dark apparitions wanted to attack the Star Maple Troop. The Star Maple Troop was a troop from the Xingwu continent. They weren't stationed in this area. Instead, they were guarding another dimensional rift. Were the dark apparitions planning to combine their forces from these 2-dimensional rifts and capture the Star Maple Troop forcefully? All kinds of possibilities flashed through Wang Ting's mind, leaving him shocked. This piece of intel was crucial. Many people would die once the war started. The game was already over for the Star Maple Troop if they suffered a combined attack from the dark apparitions stationed behind 2-dimensional rifts unprepared. Even more, an insider was helping the dark apparitions. The tragedy of Yang City was still fresh in his memory. Wang Ting's gaze turned sharp. He controlled his breathing so that he wouldn't expose himself. The conversation in the room continued. They discussed some details of the plan, and Wang Teng remembered everything carefully. Then, the mysterious person entered a secret passageway and disappeared from the room. He came from a secret passageway. Wang Teng was enlightened. No wonder he didn't detect the arrival of this person. He was focused on the movements above the ground and neglected to inspect below the ground. Wang Teng activated his spiritual sight and saw the direction where the mysterious person was heading in. He calmed down and prepared to leave. He would track the person a bit later. The dark apparitions remained silent for some time. Then, the vampire said, "Is this person reliable?" "Don't worry. I have planted the touch of darkness in him. He has no other choice but to work with us." The dark apparition with a deer head and human body scoffed. The ambush of the Star Maple Troop must be a success. The giant apparition opened his mouth. "Ha ha ha, those humans keep opposing us. In that case, we'll annihilate one of their troops first." The dark apparition with a deer head and human body gave a sinister smile. The killing intent in Wang Ting's heart almost overflowed. He left quietly and found his way out of number 56 garrison. He planned to chase the mysterious man. However, he remembered that the other party had only left seconds ago. He couldn't attack him near the garrison since it might alert the dark apparitions. Thus, he went back to the hill and met up with his companions. The 3 officers were stunned when they saw Wang Ting. Then, they felt relieved. It was great that he was fine. They gathered around him and asked, "What's the situation?" Wang Ting didn't waste any time. He immediately told them what he knew. What? They want to attack the Star Maple Troop. The three officers were astounded and filled with disbelief. They didn't expect Wang Ting to bring back such a major piece of news. It was unexpected. We must immediately go back and report this to the higher authorities, Yuan Xian said grimly. That's right. There's not a moment to waste. Let's go back immediately. Niu Li nodded and turned around. Wait! Wang Ting suddenly shouted. 3 gazes landed on him instantly. Wang Ting's performance during this mission was remarkable. They might not have realized it, but they were starting to take his opinions seriously. Thus, when he opened his mouth, Niu Li asked, "What's up?" "I want to intercept and kill that mysterious man." Wang Ting shocked them with his words. "Are you crazy? Based on what you said, that mysterious man is a 9-star soldier-level martial warrior. We don't have any chances of winning even if we attack him together. What ability do you have to kill him?" Kong Li frowned. If it was possible, they wouldn't let the mysterious person leave either. This man was the crux of the Dark Apparition's plan to attack the human troop. They could only gain the upper hand if they took him down. However, his ability surpassed all 4 of them immensely. This was why Niu Li didn't ask them to intercept him and suggested going back to report to the higher authorities. The mission is of paramount importance. Don't get blinded by military exploits. Niu Li thought that Wang Ting wanted to gain military exploits, so he frowned as he rejected him. "Can you listen to what I have to say first?" Wang Ting replied helplessly. Kong Li expected better from him. Why was he still being stubborn when they had expressed their opinions? He was too insensible. Niu Li waved his hand and said to Wang Ting, "Go ahead. I have confidence that I can take him down," Wang Ting said calmly. "Fut." Yuan Xian snorted. He continued in an icy tone, "You're only a 7-star soldier-level martial warrior. Where did you get the confidence to make this statement? I admit that you did well up to this point, but you're seeking death if you go and intercept that person. Wang Ting, this isn't the time to fool around. This information is very important. We need to bring it back quickly." Niu Li didn't believe Wang Ting either, but he still explained to him patiently. He was a genius, and he deserved his respect. "You guys never believe what I say." Wang Ting sighed. "Stop being stubborn and listen to the leader," Kong Li said agitatedly. Wang Ting shook his head. He wasn't willing to let that mysterious person leave so easily. He contemplated for a while and suggested, "Why don't you bring the information back and let me deal with the person alone? This shouldn't be a problem, right? What bullshit are you spouting now? It's too dangerous for you to go alone." "I object." Kong Li was furious. "I object too. I'm the leader. I'm ordering you to go back with me immediately." Niu Li put on a stern expression and replied to Wang Ting straightforwardly. This was the first time he had ordered Wang Ting as his leader. After he finished speaking, he turned and left with the 2 majors. Wang Ting followed them helplessly. Their method wasn't wrong, but he understood his own ability the best. If he combined his spiritual power with his martial arts cultivation, he was confident that he could take down the 9-star soldier-level martial warrior. However, he couldn't explain this to them. This was what caused the situation now. Were they going to let the mysterious man leave without doing anything? The 4 of them went back the same way they came. Their speed was faster compared to when they came. This mission was surprisingly smooth. Of course, all the credit went to Wang Ting, but he was such a bother. He insisted on killing that 9-star soldier-level martial warrior. The youth knew no fear. Niu Li felt his head hurting when he thought of this. He must be sulking now. He's not making any sound. He turned his head and glanced behind him. There was no one. The veins on Niu Li's forehead bulged out as he roared in anger. "Where is he?" Kong Li and Yuan Xian turned their heads in astonishment. Even they hadn't noticed when Wang Ting disappeared. Did he leave to kill that mysterious person? Kong Li's expression was ugly. What other reasons can there be? Yuan Xian shook his head. He felt that Wang Ting was digging his own grave. Chapter 420, Free and good manual laborer. Niu Li was infuriated by Wang Ting's sudden departure. At the same time, he was frustrated. Just like what Nai Zhenqiang said, this brat wasn't easy to deal with. He shouldn't have gone far. Let's split up and search for him. We must bring him back, Kong Li suggested. As his senior, she didn't want to see a rare genius from her alma mater dying in this place. Niu Li pondered for a while before he nodded. The time limit is half an hour. If we can't find him by then, well, stop searching and gather here. You should understand the importance of the information. Understood. Kong Li and Yuan Xian nodded simultaneously. Then, they started searching for Wang Teng immediately. At first, Wang Ting wanted to tell them the position of the secret passageway. However, they didn't agree to his interception proposal, so he didn't have the chance to share this information with them. Thus, the three officers could only fumble their way around. If they were lucky, they might catch up with him. Half an hour later, they returned to the original spot. Kong Li's face was black. She said indignantly, "Is that brat rushing to die? Why did he run away so quickly? All right, a general is exempted from the king's dictations in a battlefield. He's a tough nut to crack. I did expect him to create trouble, but I didn't think that it would happen this early." Niu Li shook his head and sighed. This is his decision. Whether he lives or not is up to his fate, Yuan Xian said coldly. Idiot. Kong Li glared at him. All right, stop arguing. That brat is a smart kid, so he might return unscathed. Niu Li said, there's nothing we can do if we stay here. Let's hurry back. Kong Li was a soldier, so she knew that Niu Li's decision was the best. She gritted her teeth and said, okay, it's up to himself whether he comes back alive or not. Wang Teng didn't know what had happened on their end. He predicted that the officers would choose to head back for the mission even if they discovered his disappearance. Hence, he wouldn't affect the delivery of intel even though he had defied a military order. He never expected them to stop and search for him. Still, he didn't have the time to waste. He was chasing after the mysterious man in the passageway. He had wasted some time in convincing them earlier, so the mysterious person was already a distance away. He had exceeded the scope of his spiritual sight. Fortunately, Wang Teng remembered the direction of the passageway and chased after him on the path. Finally, he saw the ball of force light that belonged to that person. Phew. If he had to return without accomplishing anything, it would have been embarrassing. Wang Ting silently heaved a sigh of relief. Then, his gaze turned sharp, and his speed increased exponentially within a split second. He decided to dash ahead of the person and ambush him. After all, this mysterious person was a 9-star soldier-level martial warrior. He shouldn't underestimate him and should remain vigilant. If he could catch him off guard, that would be the best. If he couldn't, he would have to waste much effort and time. A mountain range appeared in the distance. Looking in the direction where the mysterious man was going, he should be heading for the mountains. Without a doubt, the exit of this secret passage was in the mountains. The length of the secret passageway was longer than expected. It must have been hard for the dark apparitions to dig such a lengthy passage. Wang Teng couldn't find the exact location of the exit, so he had to keep a close watch on the mysterious person. A few minutes later, he appeared in the middle of a mountain valley. Wang Ting activated his spiritual sight and scanned the valley. He finally noticed something different. The exit of this passage was in a mountain cave. It was concealed with a high-quality rune array, so ordinary people couldn't detect it. However, Wang Teng was an advanced stage runemaster with impressive spiritual power. This was a piece of cake for him. He hid his figure and stepped into the cave. The next moment, he frowned involuntarily. There were 2 balls of dark forces in the cave. They were at the 3-star soldier level. Wang Teng sighed. He had made a mistake. He didn't expect there to be 2 dark apparitions guarding the cave. He gave up the idea of ambushing the mysterious person. If he wanted to capture the mysterious person, he had to kill these 2 dark apparitions first. However, the mysterious person was very close. There was no time. If he took the risk and killed the 2 dark apparitions, he was afraid that he would be discovered. Once he alerted the person, the possibility of taking them down would drop. It wasn't worth it. Also, Wang Ting wanted to capture the mysterious person alive. He planned to dig more useful information from their mouth. If Niu Li and the two mages knew his plan, they would have reprimanded him for overestimating himself and building castles in the air. It's hard to capture him alive. Wang Ting touched his chin. He was 80% confident of killing the mysterious person. As for capturing them alive, he felt the chances were only 50%. He looked at his attributes panel and scanned all his skills. His gaze paused on something. Wait, I have a brilliant idea. The corners of his mouth lifted and formed an eerie smile. He secretly left the cave and hid outside, waiting for the mysterious person to come out. A few seconds later, a figure covered in a black cloak came out of the cave. The person was wearing a mask, so no one could see their face. Phut, how vigilant. Wang Ting pouted. The figure scanned the surroundings and walked out of the valley. He chose a direction and stepped into the forest. Wang Ting followed secretly. Half an hour later, the figure was already a distance away from the exit. Once confirming that no one was on their trail, they took off their black cloak and mask. His face was finally revealed. This was a handsome man around 30 years old. He gave off a dignified vibe and had a crew cut, looking smart and capable. There was a conspicuous scar on his forehead. Below the black cloak, he was wearing the red-black military uniform of the Xingwu Continent's army. Wang Ting had seen the uniform in Yang City, so he was familiar with it. When he saw the military uniform, a sneer appeared at the edge of his lips. It was followed by waves of killing intent. This person deserves to die. The mysterious man increased his speed after he took off his disguise. He headed in a certain direction into the mountains. He's not planning to leave. Wang Ting frowned. He had no choice but to follow the man and wait for an opportunity. The two of them didn't fly in the air. The mountains were home to many powerful star beasts, and flying would make them an obvious target. They would get attacked easily. Along the way, Wang Ting suddenly realized that the mysterious man wasn't just randomly moving about. He had a motive. Roar. Suddenly, an enormous star beast covered with scales pounced on the mysterious man. It opened its bloody mouth in an attempt to swallow him whole. Go away. The mysterious man scoffed. He punched his fist out and killed this 7-star beast instantly. He didn't look at the corpse and kept it directly into his space ring. Then, he continued moving forward. Wang Ting's gaze landed on the spot where the 7-star beast was killed. The corpse was taken away, but the attribute bubbles remained. Earth Force *180 Wood Force *60 blank attribute *300. This was a 7-star beast, so it had dropped a sizable amount of attributes. Wang Ting chuckled. He picked up the attribute bubbles and caught up with the mysterious man. He didn't expect to have an unexpected gain from following this man. Were the gods rewarding him because they felt that he was having a hard time? Wang Ting felt narcissistic. During the journey, powerful star beasts would appear occasionally. The mysterious man purposely evaded the star beasts, but he still met some of them. When he did, he had to kill them. Wang Ting stayed behind him and happily picked up the attributes. The mysterious man was heading deeper into the mountains, so the star beasts he met were all formidable. He tried his best to evade 8-star and above star beasts, but the mountain was only that big. He couldn't find alternate paths all the time. Thus, he had to choose the path with the weaker star beasts, mostly around 5-star to 7-star in level. Even so, Wang Ting had a huge harvest. All his force attributes saw an increase. His blank attribute reached a new height too. Blank attribute, 4350. Wang Ting hid in the dark and happily watched the man battle a giant python star beast. Fight, continue fighting, drop more attributes. Wang Ting felt fortunate that he had chased after the person. He wouldn't have been able to pick up all these attributes if he hadn't. Even more, he didn't have to move a finger. Looking at the man, he nodded in approval. What a free and good manual laborer. Boom, boom, boom. The giant python hissed in agony. Its gigantic body squirmed and struggled on the ground for a while before it stopped breathing. The mysterious person was also panting for air. It had been an arduous journey for him. He was a 9-star soldier-level martial warrior, so these star beasts couldn't hurt him. However, it was still exhausting. Nonetheless, he had to do this to get close to that place. He kept the corpse of the giant python and dashed further into the mountain range. Time was tight. He mustn't dawdle anymore. Fire Force *120 Wood Force *120 blank attribute *280 Wang Ting picked up the attribute bubbles and followed the person hurriedly. At night, the mysterious person barbecued the leg of a wild boar star beast over the campfire he created. A pleasant scent wafted through the air, tempting one to take a bite. However, the man had used his force to lock the aroma in this area so that it wouldn't attract other star beasts. Wang Ting observed the other party silently not far away from him. At first, he wanted to prepare some poison and feed it to the mysterious person secretly. Now, he was curious what this person's motive was. Why did he spend so much effort to head deep into the mountains? If there were more attributes for him to pick up, that would be great. The peace of the mountains at night was occasionally broken by the roars of wild beasts. The man was extremely vigilant. Whenever a star beast came close, he would dodge it. He had wasted too much energy in the day, so he didn't want to fight at night. Wang Ting felt bitter in his heart. He was forced to wake up many times at night. Why can't you let me sleep properly? You're so troublesome. The next day, he continued following the mysterious man with a pair of panda eyes. The mysterious man killed many star beasts along the way and finally reached a lake deep in the mountains half a day later. Wang Ting's pupils constricted when he saw the location from afar. Chapter 421. Chapter 421 Cough. Were they considered the same type of person? Thick water force enveloped a huge lake in the depth of the forest. Wang Teng's eyes lit up as he gasped in astonishment. There were many attribute bubbles of different sizes floating over the surface of the lake. Some were disappearing while some had just appeared. He had never seen a place that could produce so many attributes bubbles by itself. This proved how dense the water force in this lake was. Even the poisonous pool in the Yongye mountain ridge didn't produce so many bubbles. This wasn't a simple lake. Wang Teng didn't want to alert the mysterious man, so he didn't collect the attribute bubbles immediately. His heart ached when he saw the attribute bubbles disappearing, but fortunately, more would be born to take their place. He tried his best to shift his gaze away from the attribute bubbles and focus on the mysterious man. This was obviously his destination, but what did he plan to do here? Under Wang Teng's spiritual sight, he saw clearly that the other party's element was wood. His force attribute was different, so he wouldn't benefit if he cultivated here. As expected, the mysterious man ignored the dense water force swimming around the lake. Instead, he started sizing up the lake from the side. He seemed to be thinking and searching for something. This is it. It's definitely here. Rare wood element plants like the snow jade tree can only grow in an environment like this. Ecstasy emerged on the mysterious man's face. He had been collecting all kinds of wood element treasures over the years to improve his ability. So far, he had spent a fortune on them. This was why he led a poor life. Other people thought that he was noble, a person who never wasted money or pursued extravagance. They thought that he was different from his compatriots and a role model for their generation. Only he understood his own hardships. If he had a choice, he didn't want to be thrifty either. He wanted to wear pretty clothes and eat good food. He wanted to have many beauties beside him. He didn't want to chew on hard bread and sleep alone every night. In summary, for many years, he lived a miserable life in order to raise his ability. This was the reason why he worked with the dark apparitions. Not long ago, he suddenly received news of the snow jade tree and went wild with joy. The snow jade tree was an extremely rare wood element plant. Legends had it that it could assist wood element martial warriors in stepping through the gates to the general stage. The dark apparitions promised to help him break through to the general stage, but he had his scruples towards his partners. If he didn't need to use them to achieve his motive, he would never act against his interest. With the snow jade tree, he would be able to advance to the general stage quickly and gain the upper hand. Many people didn't know that the snow jade tree had a heaven-defying function. When martial warriors used the snow jade tree to break through to the general stage, there was a chance that they could develop water talent. The snow jade tree wasn't solely a rare wood element plant. It was a rare water element plant too. Rare plants were already hard to find. Hence, there were even lesser multi-element rare plants. They were the treasures among the treasures. If he succeeded, he would become a double-element martial warrior. He wasn't the most talented person or a genius of any sort. He was at most average. However, if he became a double-element martial warrior, he could be considered a talented martial warrior. After all, the combat prowess of double-element martial warriors was higher than normal martial warriors. Once he broke through to the general stage, his strength would definitely be many times greater than a normal 10-star general stage martial warrior. This was the only way for him to have a firm foothold in society and pursue his ambition. Hence, he couldn't wait a moment longer to get the snow jade tree. He took the chance while he was working with the dark apparition to sneak into this place. When he saw the scenery here, he felt that the snow jade tree was not far off, even though he hadn't seen it. The snow jade tree. Wang Ting was thunderstruck by the mysterious man's muttering. He was an alchemist, so he knew all the rare and treasured ingredients in the world. Naturally, he knew what the snow jade tree was. A sly look flashed across his eyes, and the corners of his lips curled up uncontrollably. This snow jade tree was his. Employee, do your job. Wang Ting's gaze landed on the mysterious man. He stared at him in encouragement, hoping that he would find the snow jade tree quickly. However, the mysterious man was cautious. He kept walking back and forth along the banks of the lake. Without thinking, he knew that there must be many powerful star beasts lingering around the snow jade tree. After all, it was a rare plant. If he entered the lake recklessly, he would be putting himself in danger. The lake was huge. No one knew what terrifying star beasts were hiding inside. Wait, since he knows that the snow jade tree is here, he will also know which star beast is guarding it. Based on his cautious way of doing things, he won't come unprepared. Wang Ting immediately thought of this. He squinted. Fortunately, he wasn't in a hurry, so he hid in the dark and waited for the mysterious man to act. The mysterious man covered up his aura and took out the corpses of the star beasts he had killed. He stuffed something into their bodies before storing them back in his ring. Then, he sat beside the lake and waited silently. Wang Ting's expression turned strange. He was sure that the mysterious man had stuffed poison into the star beasts' bodies just now. This man had the same thought as him. He wanted to poison this mysterious man a while ago, and the mysterious man was using the same method to tackle the star beast in the lake. Cough, were they considered the same type of person? Wang Ting shook his head hurriedly. He wasn't the same type of person as this traitor. He was a human, yet he cooperated with the dark apparitions. It was a humiliation to be associated with him. It was still early, and the mysterious man didn't seem to have any plans to act soon. Hence, Wang Ting sat down cross-legged on the ground and had a short rest as he closed his eyes and leaned against a tree. Night fell. The mysterious man finally started moving. Wang Ting opened his eyes and looked over. The mysterious man took out the star beasts he had drugged and tossed them into the lake. This man is seriously willing to spend a fortune. He's just tossing all these advanced rank star beasts into the lake. The powerful star beast in the lake might be intelligent, but it probably can't resist this temptation. Wang Ting wondered to himself. Gulp. After a few minutes, bubbles appeared on the surface of the lake. Under the moonlight, a gigantic black shadow could be seen diving in the water. It was swimming towards the spot where the corpses of the star beasts were. It's hooked. The mysterious man was elated when he saw this scene. He waited for another 10 minutes. The corpses of some fish star beasts gradually floated onto the surface of the lake. The mysterious man disregarded these innocent fishes that were implicated and stared intently at the lake. Half an hour later, he took out a blade and swung it towards the lake. The blade cut the surface of the lake into two, causing a huge commotion. The lake took some time to resume its calmness. During this time, the enormous being in the lake never showed itself. The mysterious man couldn't control himself anymore. He laughed proudly and happily. Then, he jumped into the lake. Chapter 422. I don't know him. Just passing by Wang Ting felt a little guilty when he saw how happy the mysterious man was. He even snorted like a pig. Was he too atrocious? This man worked hard to gather information and killed all the star beasts to lure the guardian of the tree out. He even poisoned the bodies and waited patiently for the star beasts to get enticed. It must be hard for him. Yet, he was going to snatch his fruits of labor. It was a little uncool of him. Wang Ting shook his head. He would be gentler on him later. After all, he was a soft-hearted person. Wang Ting was standing on a tree branch, and Mo Q had already appeared in his hand. The sharp weapon gave off a chilly and icy glint. At the same time, a ray of light flew past him at the speed of lightning. It circled him a few times before merging into the darkness and disappearing. He was already prepared for the appearance of his fruit of waiting. Wang Ting's eyes were beaming with excitement. Sneaky plans were most suitable for him. It made him excited just thinking about it. Suddenly, a large ripple appeared on the calm surface of the lake. Along with the sound of an explosion, the water in the lake spurted towards the sky. A single movement stirred up a tsunami. Roar. At the same time, an angry bellow resounded from the bottom of the lake. Wang Ting was stunned. Then, his expression turned weird. He muttered to himself, did he lose? He could imagine how exasperated and hopeless the mysterious man would feel when he went down only to realize that the star beast didn't get poisoned. This person's luck wasn't good. Wang Ting's pupils shrunk as he thought of another possibility. The star beast might be more intelligent than they had expected. It pretended to eat the poisoned corpses and didn't retaliate when the mysterious man struck the surface of the lake. It wanted to lure the mysterious man into the water, planning to catch the turtle in a pot. This is so scary. Is that star beast a sly old fox? A frightening battle was happening at the bottom of the lake, evident from the continuous explosions. Wang Ting kept a close watch. After a few moments, a figure shot out from the lake in a disorderly manner. Another gigantic figure was pursuing it relentlessly. It opened its giant maw and attempted to bite the mysterious man from below. Under the moonlight, 2 rows of saw-like teeth shone eerily. The puddles of water beside it formed 2 small-sized waterfalls, splashing down on the lake below. Damn it! The mysterious man was agitated. He chopped his blade downwards while evading to the side. The star beast closed its huge mouth, and the blade glow smashed into its shining black scale armor, letting out small sparks. It didn't get hurt. That was when Wang Ting saw the full appearance of the star beast. It was an enormous black armor giant crocodile. When he saw the mysterious man's attack landing on its body without any damage, his expression turned grim. The black armor giant crocodile floated horizontally on the surface of the lake. It gave off a frightening aura as it glared at the mysterious man with its malicious yellow eyes. Roar. It opened its mouth and gave a terrifying roar. A blue force ball formed instantly, and it darted towards the mysterious man. The ball of light traveled at high speed. In a blink of an eye, it was in front of the mysterious man. The mysterious man's expression changed entirely. He couldn't evade it in time, so he shouted and cut the ball of force glow with his blade. The glaring blade glow collided with the ball of light. Boom! Explosions echoed throughout the entire lake. The mysterious man was determined to get the snow jade tree. The black armor giant crocodile stared at it coldly, killing intent flowing out of its eyes. At this moment, it just wanted to tear this human who dared to lay his hands on its treasure into pieces. The human and the beast started fighting again. Boom! The water in the lake gushed out, toppling the trees around it. There was chaos everywhere. They fought for more than 10 minutes before the mysterious man got hit by the black armor giant crocodile's tail. He slammed into the ground and formed a deep hole. His body was riddled with wounds, and blood spurted out of his mouth. He had suffered a serious internal injury. Why is this beast so powerful? The mysterious man found it unbelievable. He knew that he couldn't win, So he turned and ran away. The snow jade tree wasn't important to him anymore, his life was. He would come and settle this beast another day. Unfortunately, the black armor giant crocodile didn't plan to let him go so easily. Its body was huge, but that didn't hinder its speed. It arrived in front of the man in an instant. Move! The mysterious man raged. The force in his body erupted. He seemed to have used some secret skill that increased his power by 30%. He swung his blade at the black armor giant crocodile. Boom! A figure was thrown into the air from the center of the impact. It was the mysterious man. Bang! A deep hole appeared on the ground again. The mysterious man lay in the hole with blood gushing out of his mouth. He was appalled. Half-step Lord level. This black armor giant crocodile had reached the half-step Lord level. The Lord level of the star beasts was equal to the general stage of the humans. Even though it was only half-step Lord level, the mysterious man was not its match. His heart was filled with complaints and curses. They had fought for so long before the giant crocodile revealed its true strength. Who was the human here? What a sly crocodile. The mysterious man looked at the giant crocodile in the sky. He seemed to sense contempt in its eyes. He was being looked down on by an animal. Splurt. He vomited a mouthful of blood uncontrollably. However, he had no intention of waiting for his death here. He struggled to get up. Suddenly, he saw a young man standing on a tree beside him. He was acting sneakily and seemed to be trying to hide. When their gazes met, the atmosphere turned silent for a second. Both of them. Who's this person? Why is he here? The mysterious man was puzzled. He was in a complete daze. Wang Teng felt a little awkward. He never expected the mysterious man to coincidentally land beside the tree he was hiding at. He was so close that he didn't have time to hide again. At this moment, the mysterious man's desire to live was extremely strong. He couldn't care about who Wang Teng was or why he was here. The reason wasn't important. He just wanted to survive. Hence, he looked at Wang Teng hopefully and said, "Help me." Roar. The black armor giant crocodile also noticed Wang Teng's presence and let out a furious growl. I don't know him. I'm just passing by. I'll leave immediately." Wang Teng froze on the spot and smiled awkwardly. The mysterious man received a huge blow. His gaze turned bitter like a resentful wife who got abandoned by her husband. The black armor giant crocodile felt that this young man who suddenly appeared must be an idiot. Did he think that it would let him go? Roar. It roared angrily at Wang Teng. Its breath was pungent, and the wind caused by the roar brushed against Wang Teng's face, hurting his skin. His hair became messy. All right. Wang Teng waved his hand impatiently. "I understand that you won't allow me to go. Why do you have to be so fierce? Don't you know that your breath stinks? You don't have any self-awareness." The mysterious man. The black armor giant crocodile. The mysterious man almost turned berserk. This was a life or death moment. Was it the right time to care whether its breath stunk or not? Where did this weirdo come from? Chapter 423, Evil Beast, Don't Run, Take My Last Burst of Fire God Cannon. While the mysterious man and the black armor giant crocodile were spacing out, Wang Teng turned around and ran. Damn it. This black armor giant crocodile is so fierce. I should stay away from it temporarily. The mysterious man. He looked at Wang Teng in bewilderment, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Would this work? The problem was, the black armor giant crocodile got startled by the young man and forgot to attack him. Wait, if you're running away, take me with you. The mysterious man stared at Wang Teng, who had covered a few hundred meters in an instant. Then, he turned his neck stiffly and looked at the eyes of the black armor giant crocodile. They had turned red. Roar. A furious roar vibrated through the air. The black armor giant crocodile swung its tail and slammed it on the ground. Splurt. The mysterious man vomited a mouth of blood and stared at the beast in confusion. Why? The black armor giant crocodile didn't even glance at him. Actually, that tail sweep was just a random move. It was worried that the prey in its hands would escape, so it beat him up until he was half dead first. After it took care of the other prey and brought him back, it would enjoy the two of them together. The star beast turned its huge body and chased after Wang Teng. Wang Teng wasn't really running away. He took the chance to take out his fire god cannon and started charging it. "Take a shot of my cannon." As he was running, he suddenly turned around and fired a shot at the black armor giant crocodile. Scorching red light spurted out from the muzzle and crashed into the enormous body of the black armor giant crocodile that wasn't able to dodge in time. Boom! The fiery glow exploded and burnt everything with its scorching heat. Roar! The black armor giant crocodile howled in anger as it stormed out from the flames. There were burnt marks on its body, but that attack didn't hurt it. There was no damage on its black armor at all. However, the black armor giant crocodile was infuriated by Wang Ting. It roared crazily and chased after him like a madman. A blue light ball congregated in front of its mouth. The ball violently shot towards Wang Ting. Wang Ting had watched the battle between the mysterious man and the black armor giant crocodile just now, so he was guarding against this move. When it started to form the light ball, he activated his space talent and disappeared on the spot. Boom! The blue ball of light missed him and collided on the ground. Soil splattered everywhere, leaving a deep trench. Wang Teng appeared a few meters away from the hole. He kept running away as he charged the fire god cannon. The mysterious man in the distance couldn't move because of his serious injury, but he hadn't fainted yet. He stared at Wang Ting in disbelief when he saw this scene. He couldn't tell how Wang Ting had managed to dodge the attack. He had experienced the attacks of the black armor giant crocodile personally. If they were so easy to evade, he wouldn't have landed in his current state. Yet, Wang Teng did it. Furthermore, it didn't look forced. He seemed quite relaxed. A tinge of hope suddenly appeared in his heart. There was a chance that he could be saved. "Take another blow." Wang Teng's voice rang in the air once again, followed by a loud boom. The black armor giant crocodile got hit by the fire god cannon again. It was shot in the same area as before. No matter how hard its armor was, it couldn't endure 2 rounds of forceful attacks in a short time. Cracks appeared on its armor, and it started roaring angrily in pain. Wang Teng smiled. This was the effect he wanted. It looked like the armor of this black armor giant crocodile wasn't impenetrable. He decided to let the black armor giant crocodile enjoy another few rounds of his fire god cannon. He had ample force, so he was able to handle what others couldn't with skill and ease. The fire god cannon continued charging up. The black armor giant crocodile squinted, feeling a sense of threat from the fire god cannon. Its gaze turned icy, and it roared in anger. Then, it charged towards Wang Teng once again. It swept its huge tail horizontally. The air around it was compressed to the maximum before exploding. The tail swung towards Wang Teng, bringing along a terrifying force with it. Wang Teng turned into lingering shadows and disappeared. He didn't fight the black armor giant crocodile face on. Hence, the two parties started a game of catch. Wang Teng charged the fire god cannon as he ran, occasionally shooting the black armor giant crocodile. After some time, the armor on its body cracked open, and wounds started to form. It was bloody. The black armor giant crocodile felt indignant. It realized that the person in front of it was like that slippery fish in the lake. It couldn't catch the fish even if it wanted to. In the past, it could swallow the fish since it was stronger, but this human was harder to handle. It was going mad. On the other side, the mysterious man was flabbergasted. He didn't know that they could fight in this manner. Although it was a little shameless, he had to admit that the effects were good. However, he could tell that it wasn't easy to accomplish this. You needed to have a formidable weapon like the fire god cannon and ghost-like footwork like the young man. He took Wang Ting's space talent as a kind of footwork. He didn't think in that direction at all. Also, the endless amount of force was an important factor too. This young man wasn't an ordinary person. He was a monster. Boom. The fire god cannon inflicted some damage on the black armor giant crocodile's body once again. The excruciating pain allowed the black armor giant crocodile to calm down. Fear appeared in its gaze. This person is cheating. I can't continue this battle anymore. If I continue, I'll die from the continuous attack. The black armor giant crocodile stopped pursuing Wang Teng. It turned around and ran away, dashing towards the lake. It wanted to go home. It's running away. Wang Teng was stunned. He hurriedly chased after it. They were halfway through the battle. How could he let it run away? He still wanted to see what the snow jade tree looked like. He didn't want the snow jade tree for himself. No way. He was just curious. Of course, if the black armor giant crocodile unfortunately died, it was reasonable for him to take over its possession. Don't run. Wang Ting's speed increased as the thought entered his mind. The black armor giant crocodile ran even faster. Oh no, it seemed to have chased him too far. The journey home was a little long. The mysterious man felt speechless when he saw this scene from afar. That was a formidable star beast that beat him, a 9-star soldier-level martial warrior, up like he was nothing. Yet, it was scurrying away in fear because of someone. The young man only seemed to be at the 7-star soldier level. What was wrong with the world? He realized that he couldn't understand it anymore. Was the black armor giant crocodile a fake half-step lord-level monster? Did he have an illusion just now? The black armor giant crocodile escaped frantically. As the lake got closer and closer, ecstasy shone in its eyes. It could finally go home. Once it reached home and hid there, the fierce human behind it wouldn't be able to hurt it. However, at this moment, it heard a loud roar behind it. Evil beast, don't run. Take my last burst of fire god cannon. The black armor giant crocodile trembled in fear. It dashed towards the lake with all its energy and dived in without any hesitation. Boom. The fire god cannon fired just after it dived, but it still hit the black armor giant crocodile's body. The star beast was swallowed by fire. A ray of light shot into the flames at this moment. Howl. A hiss of agony came from within the flames. Then, it stopped abruptly. Boom. The gigantic body crashed into the lake bank. It wriggled a few times before it stopped moving completely. The mysterious man. Chapter 424. What did you do? Stunned. The mysterious man was really stunned. The half-step lord-level black armor giant crocodile got killed by the young man using such a simple method. He was speechless. Why was he tormented so miserably by it? Was he too weak? Was he not smart enough? No, he wasn't. It must be because the young man was despicable. Yes, that must be the answer. The mysterious man did some psychological construction before looking at the tragic state of the black armor giant crocodile. The astonishment in his eyes remained there for a long time. He didn't know that the real credit went to Wang Teng's shooting star spiral. The fire god cannon might be able to kill the black armor giant crocodile, but it required much time. Also, it might exhaust all of Wang Teng's force in his body. However, the shooting star spiral, which was controlled by his spiritual power, was different. That was some lethal shit. The fire god cannon was just to numb the black armor giant crocodile so that he could kill it at the last moment. Of course, it was also to ensure that the mysterious man wouldn't discover his trump card. He would hide his trump card for as long as he could. Having more tricks up his sleeves wasn't a bad thing. Wang Ting scanned his surroundings. Many attributes were dropped from the battle just now. Water Force *450 Advanced Stage Water Talent *60 Blank Attribute *360 Astonishment flashed past his eyes when he saw the attributes dropped by the black armor giant crocodile. As expected of a half-step lord-level star beast. It had gifted him so many attributes. There were 450 points of Water Force alone. If there were more crocodiles, he would be able to advance to the 8-star soldier level soon. Unfortunately, such chances were rare. Half-step lord-level star beasts weren't found everywhere. As for lord-level star beasts, Wang Teng decided that he wanted to live a few more years, so he wouldn't dig his own grave. Besides Water Force, there were advanced stage water talent and blank attributes. Any increase in his talent was good for Wang Teng. As his talent increased, His speed of cultivation would follow suit and his grasp of force would become more and more skilled. Next, Wang Ting looked in the direction of the mysterious man. Many attribute bubbles were floating around him. Would force *250 spirit *75 enlightenment *60. When the mysterious man noticed Wang Ting's gaze, he tried his best to pull the corners of his lips to make a gratifying smile. Wang Ting. To him, that smile was worse than crying. "Thank you for saving my life," the man said in a hoarse voice. He was using the Xingwu continent's common language. Wang Ting's expression turned strange. This person was thanking him? But it was understandable. He did save his life, after all. He just hoped that the mysterious man would still thank him after he knew the truth later. "Young man, can you spare me some healing medicines?" "Don't worry, my name is Cho Bo, an officer from the Star Maple Troop. I'll definitely repay you after I recover." The mysterious man was worried that Wang Ting didn't trust him, so he emphasized his identity. Wang Ting finally opened his mouth. "Star Maple Troop. I've heard of it before. Looking at your emblem, you must be a colonel. Your rank is quite high." Cho Bo felt proud. However, he remembered that he needed to rely on the young man's help, so he turned humble instantly and started flattering him. "This is nothing. You're better than me. You possessed such a powerful ability at this young age." "Haha." Wang Ting laughed ambiguously. Then, he asked, "Do you know why I'm here?" Cho Bo finally remembered this matter. His expression froze, and a bad feeling crept up his heart. He asked carefully, "Why are you here?" Wang Ting looked at him mockingly. "Why don't you make a guess?" The mysterious man. "Guess your head." Cho Bo was exasperated. At this moment, he realized that this young man wasn't here to help him. However, he didn't flare up in anger. He didn't have the right to throw his temper. His injury was severe. If he flared up at Wang Ting, who was unscathed, there was only one result waiting for him: he would be dead. Cho Bo laughed awkwardly and said, "Young man, don't make fun of me. My injury is serious. Why don't you give me a healing pill first? We can discuss the details later. I have many healing medicines here." Wang Ting took out a Dan bottle from his space ring and opened the cover, allowing the medicinal fragrance to waft through the air. Moreover, he used his hand to fan the smell in Cho Bo's direction. He said, "However, if you want it, you have to answer some of my questions." Cho Bo looked at Wang Ting's actions and felt that he was being played by this young man. His heart was burning in anger. A man who lost his status and power was vulnerable to humiliation. This brat was atrocious. Nonetheless, he still maintained the smile on his face and said, ask away. "I'll tell you everything I know. Have you gotten the snow jade tree?" Wang Ting asked. "No." Cho Bo's heart skipped a beat. "Really?" Wang Ting asked curiously. "The black armor giant crocodile discovered me the moment I entered the lake. I couldn't even touch the snow jade tree," Cho Bo replied. Wang Ting hesitated for a moment. He sized up Cho Bo before shifting his gaze to his hands. Cho Bo's expression changed. He wanted to hide his hand behind his back, but the black armor giant crocodile's last attack had broken all the bones in his body. He couldn't move at all. Wang Ting sniggered. He took the space ring off his finger. Cho Bo was infuriated, but he didn't dare to reveal any emotions on his face. He felt exasperated and said hurriedly, "Young man, the space ring has its master. It's useless even if you take it. I'll just have to kill you, right?" Wang Ting replied calmly. Cho Bo's expression changed tremendously. Wasn't he telling the other party to kill him? He lost his composure in front of death and became so stupid. He wanted to slap himself. "Ha ha ha, I'm joking. Look at how frightened you are." Wang Ting laughed. Ha ha ha, the veins on Cho Bo's forehead popped out. During ordinary times, he would have killed this young man, but he couldn't do it now. He could only bear with it. Don't worry. I'm a good man. I won't kill you." Wang Ting patted his shoulder. Cho Bo's bones were already broken, so when Wang Ting patted him, his bones almost crumbled. He gasped in pain. Oh my, I forgot that you're injured. I'm sorry, Wang Ting apologized in embarrassment. Qiu Bo wanted to cry. He said weakly, can you give me my space ring back? Is there something important inside? Why are you so concerned about your space ring? Wang Teng asked with interest. No, you're thinking too much. There are only some miscellaneous items inside. Qiu Bo laughed awkwardly, his heart beating like a drum. Really? Wang Teng smiled in contempt. Of course. I'm a poor man. I have nothing valuable. If not, I wouldn't have asked you for medicine, ugh. Before Qiu Bo could finish speaking, he felt an excruciating pain throughout his body. He gave a painful expression and vomited a mouthful of blood. He was appalled. What did you? Chapter 425, Token and Snow Jade Tree. Qiu Bo widened his eyes in disbelief. His space ring was opened, and he had suffered the backlash instantly. He looked at Wang Ting in fear. What on earth did you do? Don't worry, I'm just opening it up to take a look. Don't be stingy. Wang Ting glanced at him and chuckled. Let me see what treasures you have inside. No. Qiu Bo shouted hurriedly, there are confidential missions of the Star Maple Troop inside. If you see it, you will be arrested by the Star Maple Troop. You will be brought to trial no matter where you are. Oh my God. Wang Ting said with disdain, I'm sorry to inform you, but I'm a martial warrior from Earth. What? Qiu Bo squinted. I wonder if your troop can put me to trial in the first place? Wang Ting asked. Even so, if there's a leakage, my troop will still ask Earth to hand you over to us. You still have a chance to stop now. Qiu Bo found an excuse. I love to do what others tell me not to, Wang Ting replied nonchalantly. You can't do this. Wang Ting ignored Qiu Bo. He scanned the space inside the ring with his spiritual power and realized that this fellow was indeed poor. There was nothing worthy in the space ring. The snow jade tree wasn't with him either. It looked like he did fail his mission. However, this space ring was bigger than the one he had by approximately 3 times. Wang Ting felt that he should change his space ring. There were many corpses of the star beasts that he had killed in the ring. Qiu Bo didn't feed everything to the black armor giant crocodile. Wang Teng disregarded the corpses and took 2 other items. You can't look at them. You'll be dead if you do. Qiu Bo's expression changed as he shouted sternly. He tried to use this to threaten him. Wang Teng snorted. He didn't even look at Qiu Bo. He was a weakling struggling in front of death. What a joke. He examined the items in his hand. One of them was a black token with weird patterns on it. There was a strange eye printed on the back. After staring at the eye for some time, one might get bewitched by it and fall into an illusion. The entire token gave off an evil vibe. However, Wang Teng's spirit had reached the Emperor realm, so he managed to regain his senses after a moment of absent-mindedness. When the dark apparitions befell Yang City, an evil eye had peeked through the dimensional rift to peep at this world. He might have been scared if this eye was the same as that one. But this eye was a dead object. It was nothing to him. Qiu Bo exclaimed in disbelief, You are not affected. Why are you making a fuss? Wang Teng replied helplessly. He looked at Qiu Bo as if he were a frog in a well. Qiu Bo's expression turned ugly when he was given the cold shoulder. He didn't know what to say for a long while. However, the astonishment in his heart didn't disappear. There was something weird about this young man. If I'm right, this token is proof that you've been contacting the dark apparitions, right? Wang Teng asked. Qiu Bo's pupils constricted abruptly. He denied it without hesitation. I don't know what you're saying. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it. I already know what I wanted to know, Wang Teng said indifferently. Then, he looked at the second item. It was a black rune stone. This is a legacy stone. It must be filled with the knowledge of the dark apparitions, Wang Teng said. Who are you? Qiu Bo's face turned black. This person knew too many things, making him feel uneasy. Let me introduce myself. I'm a recruit from the Black Sparrow Troop. Wang Teng looked at him and suddenly introduced himself seriously. A recruit? Qiu Bo was dumbfounded. He stared at Wang Ting in a daze. Why are you being so serious when you're a recruit? I thought you had some important identity. Wait. You're so powerful, but you say you're only a recruit. Do I look like a fool? Qiu Bo didn't believe him. He scoffed. What's the point of lying to me? Who cares if you believe me? Let me invite you to take a nap. I'm going to take the snow jade tree. Wang Ting walked towards Qiu Bo. What do you want? Bang! A brick appeared in Wang Ting's hand, and he smashed it down violently. A shrill cry later, Qiu Bo's eyes rolled back, and he fainted. Before he turned unconscious, his heart was filled with bitterness. Who did he provoke? Why did he have to suffer such cruel treatment? Wang Ting shook his head. He felt a little guilty when he saw the other person's terrible state. Was he too brutal? This fellow was already injured badly, but he still knocked his head with a brick. That was a little inhumane. Qiu Bo's head was swelling up at a visible speed. Wang Ting coughed awkwardly and muttered to himself, "Never mind, I've already hit him. I'll be gentler next time." He walked to the side of the lake and kept the body of the black armor giant crocodile. Then, he looked at the lake's surface. Many attribute bubbles were floating above the water. Wang Ting swept them over with his spiritual power. The bubbles floated towards him and merged into this body. Water force *10 water force *8 water force *12 Most of the bubbles contained water force attributes. They were of different sizes, and the number of attributes inside differed accordingly. Wang Ting had a great time picking up bubbles. After a round of collection, he received 688 points of force attributes. Water force, 2998 5000, 7-star. After he picked up most of the attribute bubbles on the surface of the lake, more attribute bubbles started to form gradually. However, they were taking a long time, and there were only a few of them. Wang Ting was too lazy to pick them up. He jumped into the lake. The water force enveloped his body, allowing him to travel in water as if he was walking on the ground. Wang Ting dived into the bottom of the lake like a fish. He scanned the bottom with his spiritual sight and found the location of the snow jade tree. There was a thick wood element glow around it. It was like a glaring and conspicuous small-sized green sun. The lake was extremely deep, but Wang Ting quickly arrived at the location with his speed. A weak greenish-blue light shone in the lake water. Many different types of fish were swimming around it, making the underwater scenery look dreamy and magical. There was a small tree growing on the lake bed, seemingly carved from jade. It was sparkling and crystal clear. Be it the leaves or the branches, they looked like a work of art. They were exquisite and beautiful. This is the snow jade tree. Wang Ting was staggered. He had read about the snow jade tree before and even saw its picture, but this was the first time he saw the real thing. He gasped in amazement. The snow jade tree was beautiful. It was like a piece of art created by a grandmaster. It was spectacular. Wang Ting sized up the snow jade tree. He was worried that changes might happen if he dragged any longer, so he decided to take it away immediately. The benefits of being an alchemist surfaced at this point. They were very familiar with spiritual plants and animals, so they knew how to collect them without harming their effects. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.